Been tested for anemia.
I have not. What's that mean? Is that do with my coughing?
No, just iron deficiency.
That's
if you have like low red blood cell count, that could contribute to low energy.
Yeah, I probably should check for that. There's a few things.
Your awful diet doesn't help.
It's not that. That could be. You know.
Are we all sound tested?
I think so.
Similar.
Check.
Hello.
Because I can do it in post, but it's a lot easier if it's just that.
Yeah. I got the button.
No, we all look like we have the same levels, so.
There is no way you have the same levels as me.
We can fix that.
That is self-control, buddy.
Yeah.
And
We don't have any
lower.
We have no self-control. Okay. I don't know where we're going to start, so we're just going to start.
We're going to start with the poem.
A poem?
Yeah, why not?
My beard.
You have one?
No, I
My
don't.
beard grows to my toes. I never wears no clothes. I wraps my hair around my bear and down the road I goes.
Done.
Okay, that was a great poem.
You said
That'll
a
be
poem.
fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the only one I know.
Here we go. Thanks for listening to Untitled Car Project, everyone. Thanks for following along. Hit follow on the podcast. I'm Rob Spring.
Jeremy Molt.
I'm Grant Gonzalez.
Gene, I'm going to let you say your last name.
Oh, Gene Eysmont.
Eysmont. See, I wouldn't have said it that way. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I thought it was Eysmont. That's how I've always.
That's kind of where I was going with it, but I thought, man, I better play this safe. Better play this safe.
Yeah,
Cool.
the spelling is not representative of how it's actually pronounced.
All right, so Gene, car guy, doctor. What other things can we add to your name?
Oh man, Enthusiast. That's
Enthusiast.
yeah,
All right,
that's it.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I wanted to start off with something. We're not going to jump straight into Gene's projects just yet.
Okay.
Something that kind of hit me this last week. What happened to car magazines?
There's a few
Actual
left.
physical. I know of.
There's a few
two.
left.
I think I know
Yeah.
of two.
Car and Driver's still there.
Yeah.
I think there's still a Mustang one.
Oh, really?
But
Like
not-
a specific.
Yeah, it's not. I don't see it very often when I go to the magazine section.
You actually go to the magazine section?
Do.
Wow.
When I go to the grocery store, I make sure to wander into the magazine section.
Okay.
Fred Meyer actually still has a good magazine section. And for the guys on the East Coast, that would be Kroger.
Yep.
Right. Kroger. I just signed up for Grassroots Motorsports. They still have
nice.
a physical magazine.
Nice.
Didn't know that.
And they had a Black Friday sale, and I'm like, yes, I'll take that.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
I've looked at their stuff online before, and they put out some pretty cool articles. It's all about, well, the Grassroots, right? It's about project car guys.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I want to check that out. I'll support those guys.
I'll have to reach out
Yeah,
to them.
maybe we can buy an ad.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool, but it also made me think, what magazines are left?
I mean-
Yeah. That's definitely a dying industry with all the digital age, and everybody reads
yeah.
crap on their phone, which I personally can't stand.
So I used to subscribe to an electronics magazine,
Yeah.
Nuts and Bolts.
Okay. So a physical magazine.
Physical magazine, it would show up every month.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day it quit showing up, and I'm like,
What
what the
happened?
hell?
Yeah.
Well, I had bought it on one of the big consumer sites, and they just one day decided they weren't going to do a paper copy anymore.
Yeah. Without telling anybody.
Without telling anybody.
It just doesn't show up anymore.
It doesn't show up, and they're like, "Here's your electronic version." And I'm like, "I didn't pay for an electronic version."
Yeah.
And I tried to fight it for a while, and finally, I just canceled it. But
Yeah.
I used to love that magazine.
Yeah. With Grassroots, you get both. And I imagine from what I've seen of some of the different publications is they will actually put different material in both places.
Yeah.
So you're actually getting new content, whether you look at them online or if you look at the physical magazine, you're not reading the same thing, which that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not doubling up. So there's something about holding that magazine and reading it that way. To me, I kind of like that. I don't like reading on my phone. It's too small. My eyes aren't that good, so
Yep.
having it in your hands is kind of,
My thing is that I like about having a physical magazine, and I don't really much read articles that much because I get most of my information that way faster through YouTube and through video.
well, listening
But-
to it.
yes.
I agree. I find that an easier way to consume.
Yeah, but the one thing I like about magazines, especially if we're at the store in the checkout line or whatever, it's a big book of what's for sale and in your face, things you wouldn't even think of because you flip through a page. If you're like a muscle car guy,
Yeah.
but you didn't think of that 180s, what's it called? Mitsubishi Stereon that you never thought of, and it's in your face. Like, oh, I remember that car.
Sure.
You know, it's just kind of browsing
Yeah.
and immediate is what it feels like.
Well, and the advertising too. I mean, those magazines survive on the advertising of people that are trying to sell their stuff, right? And that's kind of cool too. In a magazine, you can kind of pour over it, and it's not, you don't have pop-up ads jumping out at you, which drives me insane.
Yeah, you do. There's the coupons that fall out.
Oh, that is true. That's
Usually for
that's
that
the original
magazine.
pop-up ad. It's the original. That's hilarious.
Dude, I used to spend a lot of time in the back looking at the ads.
Is that what you were looking at back there?
Well,
It's called-
in the car ones.
Oh, okay.
And the nuts and bolts, yes.
Yeah. No, that's cool. What was the last magazine that you subscribed to?
Car and Driver.
Yeah.
Yeah. and
They're still out there too.
it is. That one's still out there. I ended up getting rid of it. I found that I wasn't reading it as much as I should.
Yeah.
And really, it was like the gadgets that, I was reading about the gadgets that were coming out and not the cars. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to get rid of this.
I kind of feel the same way about I'm not into newer cars, and that's Car and Driver and Road and Track, and they're all about, those two magazines are still out there, but they're all about telling you about the new cars, this and that, and all these features. And I don't really care. I'm not in the market for brand new cars every year,
Yeah.
But Grassroots intrigues me because it's all about building stuff.
Yeah.
Building different cars and the aftermarket parts and this and that, and a lot about racing. So on a budget.
Right.
So I think that's pretty cool. What about you? What was the last one that you subscribed to?
Game Informer.
Game Informer?
I've actually never, in terms of cars, I've never.
No, that's fine.
I've never had a magazine subscription because I was always of the thing of I never liked going home and then having it in the mail. I always liked going to the store and picking it up one at a time.
Yeah.
So DuPont Registry is what I used to, especially in high
cars,
school, every
no
month
doubt.
would always have because of
That
like
intrigues
supercars
me.
as well as the review on new supercars or classics.
Yeah.
That was one that, I've got a vast variety of those. There is
still
one
have
that I'm not subscribed to, but my old man is. That I get, he just gives them to me still to this day, which is the Ferrari newsletter and then the Ferrari of North America magazines that come from us from being part of the Ferrari Club. And that's fascinating because you get every month every quarter, I think, and it's full page, colored, thick books. I wouldn't even say magazines of what's going on.
More like a catalog.
Yeah, exactly. But those were always fun. They used to be little paper ones that were printed every month, and people would put ads in there to tell you what's going on for our events that are coming up.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Those were the best.
How about you, Gene?
Oh my gosh. Probably something like Nintendo Power.
Yeah.
Way.
That was a magazine?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Really?
was.
Wow.
Yeah. I got a gift subscription at one point and never renewed.
Oh, yeah. I think besides Grassroots, which I just signed up for again, Motocross Action, something like that. Way into dirt bikes. So, I had that subscription for years and years and years. So, yeah, I think that was the last physical magazine that I actually had subscriptions to. Grant's trying to do sign language. You want to say something?
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing, and I don't know of too many others like that are specific to project cars. Like, I don't know. Jeremy, maybe you see something like that since you go to Fred Meyer and look at the magazines or whatever, but I don't know what's out there that kind of caters to that genre, I guess.
Untitled
man.
Car Project.
I know. We need our own
I'm not
magazine.
starting a magazine. You can barely run a podcast.
Most of the stuff I see now are music related and
Okay.
women's bullshit, but
And guns.
a lot of gun.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of guns.
Hunting.
Ammo,
There's a lot of
yeah.
hunting ones.
Yeah.
And a lot of, what the hell? Self-sustaining farmer ones.
Really?
Yeah. Not a whole lot of car ones.
And time.
I should go buy the magazine rack. I haven't done that in years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do that again and report back what car ones I see.
There you go.
I don't.
Yeah. Pick a couple up. I think. I know DuPont Registry still puts theirs out.
Yep.
Like
And-
it's like $17.
The other one I'm surprised that still does it is Hemmings. They were the people that were sitting across from us at SEMA.
Yeah.
And they still have the thick, big books, you know. I really appreciate that because it's like Auto Trader's gone,
Yeah.
but having just a dedicated little slot, car. It's nice.
Is the little nickel still a thing? Because I used to look at that for cars and stuff all the time.
Oh, I used to too. I don't think so.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Sad.
most of those newspapers are
Gone.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me, still trying to get over the stupid cold. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about Gene's projects.
Gene.
Projects. Wow. Well, we've got quite a list of them. Not sure where you want to start. First, well, let's start. How did you know Grant? Let's start with that. Let's start personal. We're going to go that route. Yeah.
I think, and you both will laugh at this. I think we met playing Pokemon.
Yes.
So yeah, I was in medical school and just working long hours, exhausted, and one of my good friends was like, "Hey, just come on out to the Pokemon League. There's a lot of good people out there. Just hang out." So I came by, met Grant, and the rest was kind of history. We formed a good relationship.
Yes.
Grant makes friends really fast.
Yeah. He sort of is like a friend magnet.
Yes.
You can gravitate towards him, and he's loud. He's always the loudest one in the room.
That's a little bit.
So that's how we met.
Yeah.
And then we bonded over, playing Pokemon and just other interests, and then cars. We really got into that. And Grant kind of like pulled out of me like, what do you want to do with cars? I've always been interested in cars. I was always helping my dad, when I was young. I feel like a lot of your listeners are probably that way, where helping family with maintenance, and then just slowly but surely kind of getting into the process. And Grant was like, what would be your dream car? What would you like to drive? I'm like, I was interested in Porsche.
I remember that very clearly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I like Porsche. I'm like,
Yeah.
what one? He's like, the 911. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, tell me more. He like, I just like that. I'm like, tell me more. Let's dive deeper.
Yeah. And to be clear, I don't like the sort of snooty, Porsche where like the folks where they're like keeping things pristine in a museum and barely driving it, just taking it out and then polishing it, keeping it in a controlled climate. And I think that there's a place for that as well, preserving the car. But it's, I feel like the Porsches were always designed to be like driver-oriented vehicles. They were designed to be driven. They were designed to be driven hard in many cases. So I always like that kind of about Porsche. They were always like very innovative, even with like now they have that the 6-stroke engine that they've kind of come out with, or they're talking more about.
Right.
Which that's how I sort of got into to cars and projects and things like that. That's how we met Grant.
Do you remember the first time a Porsche or a 911 like that is what caught your mind? Was it a magazine you saw on the street, a neighbor, like what?
Yeah, I think it was just in a magazine. It's such an iconic, like the 911 is so iconic. It's gone through many iterations, but you can look at a Porsche 911 from its like inception to now, and you're like, that is a classic Porsche. It has sort of those same lines, has the same, the engine has the same bones, so to speak. At least that's.
Do you think Do you think that's a detriment to Porsche? Like they have really stuck with that. Like, have they overused it?
That's I kind of do feel yes. I think so. I think that they've kind of pigeonholed themselves to
that 911 body style. It's the only one they have.
Yeah, and the problem with that is that if they deviate strongly from it, like with the 944s, people were like, "Oh my God, this is blasphemy."
Sure.
Whereas, if they don't deviate from it, people will say, "You're not innovating enough. You're in that like sort of in between." But ultimately, it's so iconic that it will always kind of be associated with that body styling.
Absolutely. And possibly now they've gotten far enough into it, using it over and over and over. Granted, it's changed a little bit, but you always know it's a Porsche.
Yeah.
And so now people are just like, well, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that also makes it hard because if they're trying, like in the 80s, they had, like Gene brought up, the 944. Porsche had the 911, but they were going in different looks and different variations.
Yeah.
Now with Porsche the way it is, the problem is everything has to look like 911. The Panamera, the Boxster,
Yeah.
their supercars. The 918 has to have that front end look.
Even the Cayenne.
The Cayenne, it's true.
Yeah.
So that it's tough because it'd be nice if they can experiment. But again, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, when was the last time Porsche put out a car that didn't, 944, but is there another one that doesn't look like reminiscent of a 911? The 928 even is an upside down wheelbarrow.
917.
Yeah, 917 or 914.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is even their current race cars, like their Le Mans cars, don't, except for the 90s ones.
Well,
look like a Porsche.
aren't they based on a GT3 or GT2 though? Or are you talking about like
talking about like their
LMP?
Yeah, they're
okay.
experimental cars,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Gene's right. Like when those come out, they really push the edge of technology on those cars.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, interesting. So that's the basis of friendship from Grant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just kind of
Pokemon to Porsche.
went from there. Yeah.
Pokemon to Porsche. That's awesome. That's pretty funny. So 924, the Porsche 924. There's a story there.
Oh my. So first off, Jeremy, I'm sorry for unloading that project on you.
That was a great project.
Hey, when it peed oil on the floor, I unloaded it too.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
It did not pee oil when we started it, but it had a hard time starting. So, big fan of the 944. I always loved the styling. I always loved the fact that it was different, and it just had more of like an aggressive stance to it. The 924 was the younger brother, of course, sort of the, what do they call it, the everyman's Porsche. And it was based, a lot of the parts were based on the Beetle of the time of that era. Even a lot of the parts are even interchangeable. You can in fact get like cheaper parts just going from getting Beetle parts. But anyway, we found this Porsche that was being sold for, I think it was like $1,000. It was listed on Craigslist.
Yeah.
Grant sent me the link. He's like, dude, check this out. This is a Porsche. It's within your budget, which was like nothing at the time.
I'm going to say this just because I realized I said this, you forgot.
Yeah.
I find good deals,
Yeah.
and I always forget to look how far they are.
Oh,
That's
really?
where our story starts, right, Gene?
Yeah, the story starts. The car it technically starts the car, but it does not drive on its own. The alternator mount is off, and there were other various issues, so it was over.
It wasn't drivable, so we had to grab a trailer, an excursion, and we had to head not to Bellingham,
Linden.
but in like it was in the woods of. Where do you remember?
I don't even recall.
It was like up north. You go to Bellingham, then go out
And then
an
go
hour
further?
into
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
mountains and something like that.
We were a stone's throw away from Canada. We could have been in Canada.
Yeah.
No, we were far. But point being, Grant made all this happen. We rented a U-Haul trailer. We
did. We did.
We rented a U-Haul trailer. I think we did. We did.
Yeah.
We took the excursion. Grant drove, which was amazing. I wouldn't have been able to get there. I had a Nissan Altima at the time, so we loaded this thing up. We actually get the car to start. Grant drives it onto the trailer, and we take it back.
That place was magical, by the way. It was mind if I tell this part?
Please,
The
by all
guy that
means.
was selling the Porsche to Gene had like 5 other cars in the area, and he had decided that he was going to sell his stuff and become a mobile mechanic, traveling the country or something like that, right?
Yeah, he had like a golf, some type of rally
It was a
car
rally
he put together.
golf car he built.
Yeah.
He had and he knew what it was, and he told me what it was. It was a 1999 F250 diesels with a 7.3 in it, and he only wanted $1,000 for it.
Oh, wow.
And
Just getting rid of
running.
it.
It was running, and
Yeah.
the problem was like the interior was all molded over, and so the engine was worth it. But I was like,
Wow, for $1,000 the engine would be worth it.
yeah, but I couldn't I had to bring the whole thing back.
Yeah.
Should have
And I-
left the Porsche.
As it turns out,
But the Porsche, the biggest thing when we saw that, the body was decent.
Yeah.
But what made that car special was that interior was brand new.
Yeah.
It was shocking how good that was. Right? Well, you can attest to it, Jeremy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of what caught my eye was how clean the interior was.
Yeah. And it was a different color, too.
Yeah, it was. It had been resprayed, but it was like a nice midnight purple, kind of that Porsche sort of purple look, and it was in relatively reasonable shape. There were a couple of dents and scratches and things like that. There was some rust. The problem with that year, I think it was a '76. That year, they didn't do any kind of like treating for rust, so they were notorious for getting rust, especially if you live in that rust belt. Like those cars just rotted away.
Yeah.
But the car itself was in, like, the bones were in reasonable condition. The interior was immaculate. If you're familiar with, like, the 944s, 924s of that era, there would always be cracking on the dash. Or things would just be falling apart. It was a mess. But this car was pristine.
It was just perfect leather everywhere.
Yeah. Which was unfortunate because the rest of the car needed a ton of work.
What was more shocking, and we found this on our way back, somehow we found a Facebook group of that same Porsche that was like rallied.
Yeah.
And so,
really?
Yeah, it's so surprisingly like
The exact car.
the exact car.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we found some YouTube videos of these guys driving this car, and it was in rough shape at that point. This car had been passed around for a while in the Porsche community. I hope it found a reasonable home somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were a lot of parts of that car that were great, but it needed a ton of work.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit in over my head, and I kind of kept going.
Oh, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So to kind of start things off, the car ran, but it needed a lot of work. It would overheat. The alternator wasn't on. It had that year again had like notorious issues with alternator mounts. But I did a ton of research. I went really far in depth, figured out all the different things that it needed. I bought a lot of the equipment for it. And then I was like, while I'm in there, and I know we've all been in that position.
Mine
Project car guy here.
Mind you, I'm already was like 7 years in the Fiat, and I'm like, Gene, I know how tempting it is, but just do the essentials first. Get it running, get it driving.
That's tough.
Grant would tell me that almost every day. And I did not listen. So I was like, oh, what else could I do? Because that year, the emissions in the U.S. were very tightly regulated, or they started getting more tightly regulated. So they put on this weird smog device. So instead of making like 90 horsepower, it was making like 70 horsepower.
Wow.
So yeah, you could maybe get to 60 miles an hour in that car. It was a relatively small engine. But because of that, I was like, what can I do to squeeze out some more juice? And so I found a forum where guys had put on superchargers, or one guy in particular put on a supercharger on this engine, and all of it had to be fabricated. There were no like aftermarket parts, really. Yeah, no kits, nothing like that. And so I kind of followed this guy, sent him a few messages, and got the specs. We got all of the details of how to put this together, but then realized, okay, we're gonna have to do like a standalone ECU, because all of this stuff was mechanical, right? All the fuel injection was mechanical, all of the like spark was mechanical. So we'd have to put on a mega squirt system. So I really delved deep into this, and by that point, I think I was so in deep that I didn't focus on like cleaning some of the stuff or even like doing a brake job. Like I was kind of midway through all that.
Yeah, you started the brake job. You started tearing the engine apart. Like I came over 2 days later.
Yeah, put in bearings. Yeah, but then
everything on that car was in pieces. I was like, please tell me you know how it goes back together.
Oh man.
Yeah, I took off the injectors. I was like, oh, okay, I need to put together a fuel rail, and I found that guy had it sort of he'd fabricated a whole other system, but I found that the Camaro fuel rail, like, it lines up perfectly with the injectors on the 924. I would just need to switch out the injectors. Anyway, I went way in depth, and then I was like, oh, I don't even have like a running car.
Wow.
And then eventually, just life got in the way. Life got in the way of me, and it just sort of fell on the wayside. and I just started losing interest. Yeah.
I will say when he did tackle this project, the other thing that made it impressive, he did this in a single car garage, like a condo. Like not a lot of room in there that you were doing all this in.
In a condo, I'm surprised he even let you do it.
Yeah, I didn't ask the HO.
Yeah, don't ask, don't tell.
I did not start that car often. That's all I can say. Because the other thing so that car was sitting outside for a long time. It had some water damage in the interior, but most of the exhaust was just rotted away. So it was like headers only. You start that car, it sounded like a V8. It was like blah 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 blah. It was so wild.
Wow.
In this little teeny tiny 2.0, 4-cylinder engine.
Yeah. Huh. Well, so eventually you lost interest like any good car, project guy would.
Hey, you making fun of me?
Unfortunately.
Not really. I mean, it all comes and goes.
Yeah.
Life gets in the way, like you said, other things become more important, but that's not where I was going. So what happened to it? Like, it sits for an unknown amount of time before you finally decide to send it down the road.
Yeah, so it sat for a while, and meanwhile, I was just accumulating little parts here and there to put it together. Mm-hmm. I got some of the parts together, and some of it was just sitting in a box or sitting in its hatch or something. Mm-hmm. I got quite a few parts for it, headlights, all of it. But then my now wife was like, "Hey, I found this house I want to move into. I'd like for us to move in together." And I was totally on board with that. We were looking for a while, and we needed to jump on it ASAP. So we did, and I was like, I have to get out of here in 30 days.
Oh, man.
And I have to find a home for this car. Because I genuinely, and to this day, I still love that car. I think it's a really cool car.
A great car, dude.
I think it could be something amazing. I think it needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of love. And I was just not the home for it. So I reached out to Grant. I was like, "Hey, Grant, I want to find a home for this car. I don't care, I don't care about the money. That's not important. I want it to find a good home."
Yeah.
And so I'd met Jeremy before. We'd met a couple times. I'd autocrossed a little bit, just dipped my toes into that. And I think that's how we met.
Ryan Francis was the one that told me you had it.
Mm-hmm. Ah, that's right. Yeah, Ryan was another guy I met who through Grant, of course, also through autocross and maybe some motorcycle related stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was really amazing. We kind of came together, found a home for it. Jeremy took the 924 in its mostly disassembled state. They came by and the Porsche was, I think, sitting on 4 jack stands, rims, the wheels were off of the car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, over the garage.
It was ready to go.
And I was like, "Sorry, guys, I got to put the wheels on this thing."
So brakes were disconnected, wheels were off, motor was disassembled, there was boxes of parts. Oh, man. I was
Jeremy's
like...
wife was excited to see this.
She gave me a month.
Yeah,
she gave me a month. She
goes, in the doghouse.
"You have 1 month to get this thing running or it's got to go." And I'm like, challenge accepted. Mm-hmm. I had it running in 1 month.
Yeah.
And when it pissed on the floor, I went, "Well, you're dead to me." It's got to go.
Yeah.
It was a sad, because I was there probably, every other day helping you with that and trying to figure things out?
I think you guys all showed up
on the last
once
day.
or twice a week. No.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
They all showed up. Actually, it was on the 1 month. The day of the 1 month
started.
when we got it fired.
And I know when we got it, you had it start. We all are excited, and then it literally just all the air was sucked out of the room when we saw just the puddle on the ground.
It was like it was buckshot spraying the floor.
Yeah,
and just duk, 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 duk. And I'm like, "Well, that's got to go. That's more work than I'm willing to do."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm thinking it was probably the rear main seal or something.
It was coming out of the front of the
It
motor.
was the front passenger side.
Yeah,
That was what was the weirdest part, So
Yeah, when I was crawling, and you probably saw this when you were looking at the brakes. So the rear brakes were discs, and for whatever reason, it seemed like they had done a brake job. They'd put in new brake lines. They left the old brake lines in, which is super confusing. They just didn't bother to take them out. I get wanting them there for knowing how to get to where you're going. But yeah, there was just so much rust under there. And when I was under there, there's definitely like some oil buildup, some just, underneath the engine. So
Yeah.
I felt like I was definitely way in over my head early on. And then I got just even more over my head looking into supercharging and,
I mean, can
Mega
you
squirt
imagine
and
how
all
big
that.
of an explosion that would have been if you supercharged and fired it up like Jeremy did?
That would have been fun.
yeah, it would. Yeah, it would not have.
I would have drove it.
long.
Yeah, for a second.
It would have gone from a 924 to a Boxster because everything would have been in boxes.
Oh, it was in boxes.
You've been holding that one, huh?
Yeah, when Jeremy picked it up, it was a Boxster, we'll call it.
That's pretty funny.
It was in
Yeah.
a bunch of boxes. There were a bunch of parts in the back of the car.
So
Yeah.
let's back up to when you did pick it up. Like,
Yeah.
did you have a game plan, or was this just like super spur of the moment, and then Grant talked you into it?
Well, no, I kind of talked myself into it. The car was beautiful, and on pictures, the car looks amazing.
Yeah.
In photos, it looks fantastic. But when you get a little closer, you realize like, oh, there's a lot more rust here. There's a lot more I have to do. The suspension, just in some of the old videos that we saw, the suspension was bad.
Yeah.
So it needed a suspension job. The brakes were definitely bad. Like they were probably rotted out. So my game plan was just like to get it running early on. I was kind of following Grant's idea, but then it's so easy to fall into that.
Spiraled out of control.
It's so easy to fall into that.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's not going to be all that much more. I can fabricate a bracket. I can, do some of these things. I can learn a lot and not apply that. Was what I learned.
Yeah, it was interesting because like I went up there with him, and I've already was starting to go through the Fiat project for years, and I've these are different projects all the time,
Right.
And I knew kind of what was going on and what not to do, and that's when we got the car and seeing it. It was rough, but it was manageable. It was not like a whole like everything needs to come off, especially the interior.
Yeah.
That's and I shouldn't say just that. The one thing that gets expensive on Porsches is all the small pieces. Trim, little taillights, plastic, whatever. Everything was there. That was what was impressive about that. In terms of rust and stuff, that could have been, welded in new patches or sanded down or whatever. But it didn't seem, at least from my perspective, when we picked it up, I was like, okay, it drives, it stops in quotes, but the engine needs work. I'm like, just get that part going, and then we'll see it from there. Because then you have a running driving vehicle, and then we'll address the brakes. We'll just address it slowly over time.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah.
There was nothing that said like especially. I don't know if you agree with me on this one, Gene, but like there was nothing on that one that had so rust that it was like structurally dangerous.
Yeah.
A lot of it was like surface rust on the hood on one point, or you'd have like under the wheel well. I think like the rear ones had a little bit of rust on there.
There was one bubble on the side of the car.
Yeah. So there was nothing that was like, hey, you're gonna have to, replace the frame or do this. And so like it seemed like a good project, but at the same time, and that's why I was calling you every day, was because I was like, this is a rabbit hole. It gets very tempting to be like, oh, I'm making progress. Oh, then I'm already ahead, so I just need to buy new brake lines and stainless steel. And if we're doing that, let's go with the bigger brake kit because I'm already here. Oh, it's going to go all the way to the front where the booster's at. Well, I'm already here. All the engine's in the way. If I got a better exhaust, then that would be out of the way. And it just cascades.
Yeah.
And it's, as a car guy, as a project guy, you have to have control to hold back on that, or even have a friend be like, James, stop.
Yeah. And even that didn't help. Yeah, I got as far as I bought the supercharger. I started fabricating the mount. I got a different throttle body that would adapt to it.
Well, that's I wanted to ask about that. Like, what drew you down the road of supercharging it? I mean, you didn't even have a running motor yet.
Yeah, it was. Well, here's the thing. I checked compression. Compression was good.
Yeah.
I knew the motor was good overall. I mean, it would crank.
turn.
It would turn. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
In fact, it would turn to the point where like there were electrical gremlins. So you start the car and the alternator would just keep going.
I remember that.
Yeah, there were some weird issues, but I think I think I got caught up in the numbers where it's like, 78 horsepower, it's not enough. I want it to be more. I want it to be like more interesting. And not that a supercharger would really take you all that further. Maybe get you 120, and that's if you've tuned it. If you're not tuned, like there was the guy who had done that. So I after talking to him a lot more, after he supercharged it, he had issues getting it to run efficiently. He was saying he had trouble getting to like 35 miles an hour. It was just such a dog.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I think I just, over my head.
Yeah, just got caught up in it. It's like, well, I'm here. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also fun to like imagine. I think that's one of the best parts about building a project of any kind. If you like imagine how it's going to turn out. Imagine like, you're driving this thing down the road and it's just sounding great. Like you hear the whine of the supercharger. Like that's what's driving you.
Yeah.
And I think for any project, I think it's also important to like always think about that so that you actually accomplish it.
So you want to keep going. So you want to finish, and it's those goals, and I think we've talked about that a lot on the show, is just like setting the goal and being realistic about your timeline, and don't worry about it if it takes longer. It's a project. That's what it's for. Right.
Yeah.
Like I've got my GMC. I know that's at least a 5-year project. I'm okay with that. If it gets done sooner, if I can drive it in 2 or 3 years, awesome. But if it's 5 years and I'm just putting some, just getting it on the road, that's about what I expected.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
You gotta be willing to accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, it comes to a point where, things, like in my case, I lost interest, but the other side of that was that the house that we got only had one garage, like one car garage, very, very small.
Yeah.
There was no room for a project. So it was like, either I get rid of the project or
you didn't have room in the other garage.
But I lived alone at that point, so I could keep my daily outside of the garage, and the garage was quite a bit bigger. I know it's still a 1-car garage, but there was a lot more room. There was room to actually like have equipment, like I could weld in that garage if needed. Whereas in our current garage, we've got to suck it in as you move.
Wow.
I will say the one thing though that was really impressive about you and the Porsche build, even though like you had all these visions of what you wanted to do. Most people, they have an idea like that and then just don't get onto it, or maybe you would every night research. Go down that rabbit hole. And then the next day have parts ordered and say, this is my finding. This is the forms.
Awesome.
And then you would go the next day and be like, I just found a supercharger and going down. Like the amount of from concept to doing was just impressive to watch you do. Like not a lot of people can do that. They'll have an idea and like, oh, I want a supercharger. And then they will leave it as like, I can't find a kit, so I don't know what to do.
Yeah, or they'll just constantly be looking and looking and looking and never pull the trigger.
Exactly.
I see that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can't make up their mind. Maybe there's too many choices. I don't know what to do. I don't know which one to go with. Or maybe they're afraid to spend the money and then it's the wrong one. Or, fear holds them back and that kind of stuff. Totally get that because mixed steaks are expensive.
Yeah.
Mixed steaks.
Yeah.
Mixed steaks.
Yeah.
Mixed steaks.
So whatever happened, what is the current situation of the Porsche now? I know Jeremy knows it.
Yeah.
Gene, have you been updated at all?
I have no idea. I'd love to know.
So, I was at a friend's wedding.
Oh.
And
His wedding
it was
gift.
his wedding.
Yeah.
And we got to talking about it, and I'm like, listen, we've got this project car. I don't have the space for it. Are you interested? And he's like, yeah, let me come check it out. So a few weeks after the wedding, he came over with a trailer and a truck, and he's like looking at it, and he's like, yeah, I think I'll take it.
Did the bride know?
Yeah, she knew.
Oh, good. Okay, good. As long as everyone's on board.
It wasn't
She
instant
knew.
divorce.
So it took 3 or 4 of us to load it back up onto the trailer. It was a hell of a lot easier than getting it into the garage. So you saw the driveway coming in. It's pretty uphill.
I came by. I think I delivered some part I had or something of it, and I remember you had to like basically winch it up.
We did. So we used 2 come-alongs and a chain bolted to the ground to winch that thing, come along it up into the garage.
Yeah.
And then getting it out, we basically just kicked it and let it roll.
Roll down the hill. Gravity
And
took
you had done
over.
the brakes at that point.
Oh yeah,
so the brakes were
at least it was it stopped on its own.
Yeah.
By then, just thinking about it, like had I had the proper space to actually work on that thing, I probably would have kept it, and I think I would have K-swapped it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, something reliable.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have had to put the supercharger on there to get that kind of power.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect platform for a swap.
Yeah.
It really is. And that's what I was thinking about the whole time you were telling me, what you're trying to accomplish with this underpowered motor. I'm like, man, put something different in there.
Yeah.
But I also understand the want to have the original motor, to a degree.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure it's not getting to 327.
Yeah.
Oh,
a
really?
V8 swap would be awesome. Yeah.
That would be really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be cool to see that thing on the road.
Is he still working on it?
what's the
don't know
update?
if he's actively working on it. I know he put a bunch of effort into it as soon as he got it. Him and his brothers did. I don't know what the status is right now. I'll have to reach out.
You should reach out. It'd be awesome to update. the
Maybe
listeners
we
on
can get
Gene
him on the show and talk about it.
And he can tell us
Finish the story.
Yeah.
where it's going next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An engine swap is the right move. Those seals are just so old. Even if you put a supercharger on there, just blow all the seals immediately.
Do you think after
Yeah,
going,
it needs full rebuild.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's sat for so long the
Yeah.
way it is.
Yeah.
I
you
kept
think-
the supercharger.
you did?
That's good.
I know that. Do you think, Gene, after going through that project with the 924, if you were to go again or recommend it to anyone, because 924s are actually fairly affordable, would you recommend someone going that route, or would you recommend them, say, go 944 route? Or even the 96?
928.
Well,
Maybe the 9.
928s are
928,
fairly
there's
inexpensive.
the 944. There was an evolution. It was 928.
Oh, 924S.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it was 924, 944, and then it was the 964.
Oh,
There we go.
okay.
Yeah, sorry. But anyways, would you recommend someone sticking the 924, or would you recommend another Porsche platform that's cheap?
The nice thing about the 924 was that it had really sleek lines. The 944 has more of like a stout look. So I think it all just depends on what you want. If you want that stout look, if you want that 944 look, go for the 944. It has a better engine. If you go for the 924, I would highly encourage you look for a 924S that has a 2.5 liter engine. That's a lot better because the 2 liter engine is like, I think it was an adapted engine from a Volkswagen bus of that era, and it was tuned by Porsche, so it was done well, but it was always underpowered. Whereas the 2.5 just has a lot more aftermarket support, and it's just a better engine overall.
Okay.
So that would be my suggestion. And the 944s are still reasonably affordable. You can find a running engine. You can find a running 944 in like reasonable shape for a few $1,000s. They've gotten a lot more expensive than they have, and I can't imagine they're going to drop in price just because the Porsche, the mystique, the emblem. You pay for the emblem.
Yeah.
I'll say this,
Pay for
Grant.
that P name.
The question should have been, what's the budget?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
It's valid.
building a Porsche is not cheap.
No.
First of all,
Just the name.
Yeah. All the parts come at a premium. Yes, it has a Volkswagen motor in it, so yes, you can go search for Volkswagen parts, but it's metric. Double the price of every screw on that car.
I feel like it.
I don't think so anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I feel like it depends on
That's kind of what I was finding.
which era of, like, if a 944 pure Porsche, 928 pure Porsche, you buy a 914 or a 928, those are a lot of Volkswagen parts.
924, you mean?
924 was too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I said
Yeah.
924 and 914. Yeah, those are more Volkswagen parts and more affordable and still relatively accessible.
Yeah, the 924S has a lot of the same Volkswagen components, but you have the Porsche motor, so it was kind of like the best of both worlds. And it was just,
And then just
suspension
V8
was better.
swap it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point you bring up with regards to your budget.
Coyote.
If you want a project, if you want to like resto mod something yourself, then by all means go for something low cost, just that has good bones. But if you want something that you can like turnkey drive, spend the money, because if you have a project, you're probably going to end up spending that money anyway.
Yeah.
If not more. And then time, you got to factor that in. When you're young, you think you have unlimited time, but as you get older, your time is limited.
Yeah.
Do you think you can see yourself getting another Porsche project in the future?
Project? Probably not.
No, he's buying a runner now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would get something that runs, and then I would upgrade that, and I would make sure that it runs well and it's like well documented and doesn't have a bunch of electrical gremlins. Just time wise, I don't have the time to commit to it. I'd love to, but I don't.
Yeah.
So can I make the transition to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. So Gene.
Yes.
So we talked about the 924, and we talked about for a while you lost interest in that.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, it's because your next project you got.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah. So my if anyone out there is familiar with motorcycles, there's a small displacement motorcycle called the Honda Grom. And I picked up a Honda Grom. I think I had that a little bit before I got the Porsche, but I really started working on it as I got it. But then I really started kind of modifying it significantly a little later on. So yeah, that definitely took a little time away.
Yeah, that was an insane bike, especially everything you did. Do you want to first describe to the listeners, or do you guys know what a Grom is?
I do, but go ahead and describe
we
it.
do.
I mean, my best thing.
Gene can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's his bike.
You describe it.
Yeah, so it's a 125cc single-cylinder engine, 2-valve, very, very simple. You could fit in the palm of your hand. I mean, it's heavy, but you could hold it in your hand. It's a relatively small engine, but people loved it. A lot of beginner motorcyclists would love it because it was super forgiving. You could learn to wheelie on it. It had just enough power. I think it was maybe 10 horsepower, little lawnmower engine basically. But it would go 55, maybe 60 miles an hour if you were pushing it downhill. But there was such a craze over it. Even motorcycle enthusiasts, even folks who had 1,000cc bikes, love them because they're. And I feel like anyone who has a high powered car would understand this, like a high horsepower car. If you, it's so tempting to floor it, but you really can't do that. Whereas if you have an underpowered car or underpowered bike, you can floor it, and it sounds amazing, it feels amazing, and you're not really breaking the law.
Yeah, you're still only going 35.
Yeah. And so that's why the Grom really took off. And it built such a huge community. There are all sorts of people. There are probably people who, breaking some laws, but yeah, there was a ton of aftermarket support and a ton of people who were messing around with builds and tunes and stuff, and so I got the bike. I ended up buying it used and from this guy who was using it as a stunt bike, and it had all the fairings, all the plastic kind of coverings, cowls were broken. The whole thing was a mess. The handlebars were kind of bent, but the frame was good. The forks were good. All the main components of the bike were fine. The shifter was a little bent because the guy kept dropping the bike. But I got the bike for I think I traded it. I traded. I had some collectible cards that I was trying to sell, and the guy's like, "Hey, would you take this beat up bike for your cards?" I was like, "Sure, why not?"
Wow.
So yeah, it was kind of a wild ride. But then I got this bike, and I was like, I gotta fix it. I'm the kind of guy who, if I can't leave anything stock, I have to modify it. I have to make it my own. And so I replaced all the fairings, made it look really nice. I replaced the handlebars to get everything straight. Replaced the shifter, and then I was like, what else can I do with this bike? So I find this huge community. And people were like, "Hey, you could swap the cylinder out, and you could get a big bore cylinder. So instead of 125cc, you can find 170cc, 186cc, and you can get it tuned." So I was like, all right, well, I'll kind of start dipping my toes, and I just went down that rabbit hole.
I remember you bought a cam too for that thing.
Yeah,
you went all out in terms of power for that thing.
Yeah, I made it as powerful as I could get it. There were people who were building whole engines for it, and I wasn't going to go that route. I just wanted to, keep some of it stock. But yeah, the whole cam, we replaced the cam. Replaced the crankshaft as well. We got a forged crankshaft. We kept the gearing the same, but I found a tuner who kind of gave me some insight, but I did a lot of the tuning myself. It was a single cylinder, with an O2 bung. You could kind of figure it out.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I had. This is before I had a welder, so I had to. I asked Grant if we could weld this like O2 bung onto this exhaust system that I got. So that was a good time. But we got that thing running pretty well. It would easily go 85 miles an hour, which this bike, you should not take it 85 miles.
Yeah, it's a little sketchy on a small wheel bike.
To give our listeners just an idea, by the way, this bike is smaller than Gene. It literally looks, when you're riding it, looks like a clown car. The bike
not
weighs
that out of proportion.
It weighs under 200 pounds. You could lift it. These bikes are like notorious for being stolen too, because you could one guy could lift it and put it into a van. Thankfully, mine did not get stolen. But yeah, this bike, I think the wheel size was like, or the rim size, 12s. 12 inches.
Yeah.
So pretty small, like scooter wheels.
Yep.
I don't even know if the wheels are rated to go, or the tires are rated to go 80 miles an hour. But we got it, 80 miles an hour without any issue. There are folks out there who like break past 100 miles an hour on these.
Wow.
Which is, way faster. Like, you have no business going that fast on a little Grom.
Yeah.
But it was a cool bike. It was super reliable. And it was a lot of fun to build. And it was buildable. Eventually, we moved to a different part of the city. There's a lot more traffic, and it was more of an issue of safety. I didn't want to get rid of the bike. It wasn't that I needed to, but it was like, you know what? Let's find it a new home.
Yeah.
And we did. And then the guy
you got more trading cards from it.
No, no, I didn't. But yeah, that guy, I kept in contact with him. I gave him a great deal on it. I gave him a lot of I had a bunch of aftermarket parts for it too. I even had the old cylinder for it, so he could like rebuild it, if he needed to. And I told him, if you ever have any issues, just give me a call. I love working on the bike. It's super easy to work on. I enjoy it. And about 6 or 8 months later, he calls me and he's like, "Hey, I'm having some trouble with the bike. It's not starting." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, here I'll next time I had a chance, I drove down there. And for whatever reason, the guy did not know what he was doing. He saw that there were a bunch of there are a couple of breather hoses from the crankcase, and he was like, "Oh, these hoses are not plugged in anywhere." So he just started plugging them in random spots.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I've never heard of anyone doing that before without asking. He didn't know. I don't know how this happened, but the head was full of oil.
Oh,
yeah. I was like, I think your cylinder's toast. I think something's messed up. And so we took apart the engine. The cylinder was fine. There was no scorching. The oil or the rings looked fine. So I suspect he just put something in he plugged something in such a way that the crank or the crankcase was just like pushing oil into the head.
Yeah,
I don't know how that happened, but rebuilt it for him. It ran again. And yeah, that's the last I've heard of it. He sold it. I saw it on Facebook Marketplace a couple months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll see it. It's just so recognizable. It looks different than a lot of the Groms out there because it has two exhaust mufflers at the back, and I could just tell because I've
Did you
touched
sell it with all the
everything.
anime stuff that was on it? Because you put a bunch of anime stickers and stuff.
I put a few things. I put like a Pikachu sticker on there. I was like, I guess I could take this off. This probably devalues it.
yeah.
For some.
Yeah.
But I did keep some of the anime stuff on there. You got to keep a few things.
Yeah. What was nuts about the whole project, dude, is anytime you would get a new part, whether it was a crank, whether it was a cam or whatever, and guys, this is no joke, Gene would literally rebuild the engine, the morning before he would go to work, almost on a daily, when he would get a new part. He would completely disassemble it and then bring it back. And we talked daily. I'm like, "You did what? Excuse me? You rebuilt an engine before work?" Yeah. I do it every morning.
They're so much more simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I did the same-
Rotors, nothing.
Yeah, I did the same thing to my Yamaha Blaster when I had it. I punched it out and reinstalled the cylinder. As long as you don't tear the bottom end apart, it's not that big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But that's part of the fun of it too. It's such a small thing,
Yeah,
and
something to
you get
tinker
so
with.
familiar with it that you're like, oh, something doesn't feel right. I'm going to take this apart. Maybe maybe I can
Plug that hose in the wrong spot.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened.
Crankcase breather tube
Yeah.
somehow put into the top of the cylinder.
I
don't know how that works.
I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
It's kind of funny though.
Would you recommend that as a first bike for someone because of how easy it is to rebuild? Because most people say like a Ninja or I don't know, Honda 1000. Or what do you think, Gene?
I think it's a fine first bike. I think it's definitely underpowered, but it's super fun. You could rip it, first, second, third gear. You could get to red lines like 1100 RPM or so. You could it screams. But if your intention is to ride a bigger bike, you should start on a bigger bike like a Ninja or like a CBR 250 or whatever they have, CBR 300 now.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that would be a better option just because you get a better feel for like a full size bike. Whereas a Grom is kind of its own beast.
Yeah, it's kind of an in-town kick around commuter bike. It's not something you want to frequent on the highways or even busy roads, really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So then what kind of person would you recommend a Grom to then? Like they're already into bikes and they just want something to add to the repertoire.
Yeah, it's a good pit bike.
Yeah, it'd be a
So
great
you've seen my little pit
Yeah.
bike, right? It's super similar to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yours is bigger though.
Actually, I was going to
Is
ask
it?
if it
Yeah.
was a Grom.
No, it's not.
I would recommend a Grom for anyone who's interested in motorcycles. But if you're looking to, if your ultimate goal is to get on a bigger bike, like a 600cc or something, like a sport bike, go for a bigger sport bike. But the Grom is just so much fun. It's super easy to learn how to ride on if you're not familiar with bike transmissions. It's four speed transmission, so really simple.
Does it have a clutch?
Yeah, it has a clutch. I think some of the newer models, like you could maybe shift without the clutch, but I am not sure.
You have to start it with the clutch, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or start it in neutral.
You can shift most motorcycles without the
Yeah.
clutch once you're moving.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a cool little foray. What's the Mazda build?
Oh, so this is just my daily driver at this point.
What's your daily?
It's a Mazda CX-30 Turbo. So it's a compact SUV. I love Mazdas in general. Their platforms have been great. Their 2.5 liter engine is used basically in everything except for the Miata. But it has a lot of reliability, and I was looking to get a new car. My previous car to that was my previous daily was a Nissan Altima, which you're all maybe big fans of CVT transmission.
Oh, boy.
So good.
Yeah. So
The theory is
Infinite gear.
yeah. The theory is fantastic. It could be the most efficient, most powerful engine, but the execution, especially when Nissan does it, not great. So yeah, that car was a kind of a shit show.
Hey, they're a great rental. I get them all the time.
Yeah.
great if you can hand it back and you don't have to do anything.
Yep.
Did you guys hear about and this is a couple of years ago, the CEO of Nissan, he got caught, I think he was arrested in Japan, some guy last name Ghosn. It's like something out of a James Bond movie.
I haven't heard about this. Tell.
Yeah. So, and I might not have all the details, to the T, but so he was caught like embezzling money. He was caught doing. In any case, they arrested him in Japan. Japan has a very high conviction rate, like 90+% of people who get arrested, get convicted and prosecuted, and they go to jail.
Wow.
And so he was under house arrest for a number of months in Japan. He was, held up in some hotel, and somehow he had orchestrated this like reverse heist where these two guys came to his room, and everything was under like police supervision and monitored. There were cameras on him at almost all times. Somehow he managed to get smuggled out of this hotel. They put him in a big box that was like a sound equipment. It was labeled sound equipment. They snuck him through the airport past security without checking what's in that box.
No X-ray machine, no nothing.
Sound equipment. Why would you check for anything?
They had somehow got him through. They got him on a plane, and now he's in I forget which country, but his home country, which by amazing coincidence has no extradition laws. So he is scot-free, even though he was caught doing so this is the CEO of Nissan. Part of that was a big side story, but part of that was that they were cutting corners on a lot of projects like CVTs and things like that.
Interesting.
At least that's my understanding. So anyway, my Nissan Altima probably as a trickle down consequence of that was terrible, so I had to sell it, and I was in the market for something new and ended up getting a Mazda. And just like every other car, every other thing I've owned, I can't leave it stock.
Yeah.
So had to start modifying things.
And when you told me you were going to modify, I'm like, Gene, it's brand new. It still has a warranty. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, my warranty's up in like 300 miles. No, but yeah, since then I've changed quite a bit on it. I mean, not the engine's still the same, but I've found a tuner who has been working on this platform for some time. We've got it tuned pretty well. We have a boost controller on there. We've changed the intake, the exhaust system. I've done some suspension mods, looking to do more. Yeah, and it's, you just kind of like slowly accumulate parts, and it's like something's gone bad on the car, or like, sorry honey, we have to get coilovers or something.
She's like, what's that? Why?
No, and she's super supportive. She's which is great, as long as I don't go overboard. When I first put on my exhaust, she was like, your car is too loud. Our neighbors are going to hate us. So
were you like, fuck that guy?
No, I was like, oh man, I don't want to be that guy. So I made these silencers I put on my exhaust tips in the morning. It starts nice and quiet now, and it's all right.
Wow.
But yeah,
I didn't even know there were mods for a CX-3.
Yeah, CX. Yeah, the CX-30 is
CX-30.
Yeah, it's pretty new. It's a 2021. But yeah, there's a growing.
Yeah, apparently.
Growing.
You can mod anything.
community.
If you want to mod it, you can do anything.
Yeah, early on,
money.
Yeah, early on there was nothing. Early on, that was like you could put on some seat covers. That was the mod. But then as things kind of progress, it was like, oh, we found more. There's a diverter valve that fits a Subaru, and it has the same, like you could fit the CX-30. And there's so many different interchangeable components, and now it's like, oh, you can find a GR Corolla fuel pump fits on the CX-30 fuel pump, and that could be, it could hold fuel pressure better, and your fuel pressure is regulated in like the same algorithm that your boost pressure is. So it's like you could get a little more performance out of that. And people just slowly discovered these things. Yeah, I think there's a lot of tinkerers out there.
Yeah, there must be. I mean, to look at the car, because I just looked it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, all right. I mean, it's a pretty sporty SUV hatchback, quote, kind of a crossover, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, sporty looking car, but you wouldn't assume that you could change the boost on it, or all these other little mods to make it a little nicer, a little more capable car. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And I think the engines have been really well tested. The internals from factory come forged, not all the internals, but really? The connecting rods are forged. It can take a fair amount of abuse. Yeah. And what's nice is that some of the parts, like the the differential is probably like the limit at that point, right? You
Really?
bust your differential before you blow the motor. And so, yeah, people have been really pushing it.
Yeah.
And as we found out, the differential is kind of the weak point.
Yeah.
Oh, you did find out?
Not me, but
Okay.
some folks like they've even had like big turbos that they've made for the CX-30.
Yeah.
I might eventually go down that route, but I'd have to blow this turbo first.
He says might. I guarantee by the end of the night he's gonna email me like, I left out a good
Yeah,
deal.
Yeah.
Leave this.
It's Cyber Monday, guys.
On the way out, he's going to try to blow that turbo.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
What kind of power are people making if it's forged internals?
So there are folks out there who've gone over 400 horsepower,
wow.
which is pretty good, and the torque is actually even better. Like I'm at like 390 torque currently.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, which is pretty good. Yeah, and it doesn't rev that high. Redline is like 6,800 RPM, and it makes most of its power kind of lower end, or it makes most of its torque rather lower end. But yeah, people kind of push those things. It's the same engine, almost the same. Like parts are interchangeable for most of it with the Mazda 3 of that same generation, fourth gen.
Yeah, gotcha. So what do you do with the car? I mean, just
Yeah.
daily it? Do you sport? I mean, canyon carving?
Yeah. So mostly it's my daily. So unfortunately, I'm in traffic a lot, and that's another thing that's like kind of a frustration of mine, where it's like, oh, I have this car, I want to punch it.
You just sit there
I'm
and let
just
the
sitting in
wastegate go.
traffic. I just keep it in first gear the whole time. But it's I'm sitting in traffic quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'd love to do more autocrossing. We did some, I think, last year and the year before. But I'd love to do more because now that the car is, it's more where I want it to be. It's making a lot more power. It's making a lot more torque, and the suspension's better. So I definitely would love to do that. But that is one of the problems with just living in a big city. You get kind of stuck in that congestion.
Yeah, I think a lot of car guys get kind of stuck in that. It's like, I have this, but I can't really use it the way I want to use it. So what do you do? Are you the kind of guy that holds on to a car for a while? I mean, you've done all the mods, it's like got it where you want it, but now there's a new shiny car on the corner.
No, I hold on to cars as long as I can.
Okay.
The reason I got rid of my I had two Altimas and then this car. My first Altima I actually really liked. It worked great, but then I got rear-ended and that thing just it accordioned. It just was totaled. But the second Altima was the CVT went bad, so it kept slipping. I had to get rid of it. So I intend to keep this car for as long as I can. As long as we have gas. As long as it's still running.
Yeah.
You say
like to
that,
keep it.
and then you showed me the RX-7.
Oh, shoot. Oh, that doesn't mean I can't get another car.
Well, I mean, if it'll fit in the garage or in front of the house.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about getting, a different car or a different, whatever. Probably won't go down the RX-7 route unless for some reason one falls into my lap.
Well, you were just telling me that, like you said, if it's on RX-7, it's whatever the new.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
right.
Was it RX-9?
So
Might be a 9.
Yeah, I don't know if you've
coming out
seen
with
it.
one?
So Mazda, they teased it, I think, last year. But this year, just a few weeks ago, they unveiled and they confirmed that they're starting in production this new vehicle. They're calling the Iconic SP, but it's basically it's a little larger than the Miata or the MX-5. So it's a successor of the RX-7 or RX-8 line, but they're not really saying that. It's supposed to be an electric drivetrain with a I think it's with a dual
Rotor?
dual rotor sort
Wankel?
of like a a dual rotor like range extender or something like that. It's sort of like a hybrid type
Like a
of setup.
generator?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, I think, a pretty cool option. I don't like the concept of having a pure electric car because then you're reliant on the grid.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on the electric? I mean, that side of it. all these manufacturers, in my opinion, they're taking these iconic cars and then they're electrifying them, and it really dilutes the brand to me.
Yeah. I agree with you, especially in the way that like the Mach E, for example.
Right.
Like if the
Do not call that a Mustang.
yeah, exactly. I think it would have done just as well as it did if they didn't call it a Mustang.
Absolutely.
But,
Probably would have done better.
yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, it sort of pissed off some of the
did,
enthusiasts.
yeah.
They used it as shock marketing, though.
Yeah.
That's what got people to talk about immediately.
But I think what Mazda's doing correctly is that it's part of the vehicle that there is my understanding, they haven't released it yet, but what they've said is there's going to be a dual rotor engine that doesn't power the vehicle necessarily, but it powers the batteries. So
I enjoy that type of hybrid. I think that's a good way to go. I don't necessarily like a lot of people. I don't like the electric revolution. I don't like the electric cars necessarily, but if we're going to do it, let's at least give ourselves an opportunity to have really good range, and hybrid's the way to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And of course, this is all in production. So this is, really pretty much theory. But Mazda had mentioned that they plan to make the car more like it can run on biofuels, or it can run on hydrogen, or something to that effect. Obviously, hasn't been demonstrated.
Right.
But that would be amazing if it could be renewable resources, or it could just run on like a gas out of a pump.
Right.
Gives some more utility, and then it still kind of maintains that like sort of RX-7.
I just looked up the renderings of it, and it's like it sort of has some lines of the RX-7, but then they changed the front, and it looks like what
Miata.
It looks
MX-3 or whatever, kind of Jaguar-esque.
Yeah, I thought it looked like
Is that a bad thing to say,
yeah.
Jaguar, right now?
The new Jaguar.
I thought it did too, and it had some lines like of the Lexus.
Yeah, a little bit. Kind of. I think it's hard for them to come out with new, innovative cars now because there's so many cars. They all look alike anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then everything now is looking more sporty, unless it's a big
True.
truck.
That's true. Which reminds me, today I saw, had to have been a 98-year-old woman driving a CTSV. Yeah,
Nice.
brand new one. Yeah, I'm like, okay, she wanted that Cadillac.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. Everything looks a lot more sporty.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I guess we'll see what they come out with. I think the new administration is going to put a twist on everything, and all the auto manufacturers are going to have to regroup. Adapt again.
Yeah. Every 4 years.
Well, and maybe go back to the drawing board where they were 8 years ago. It's like, okay, now we don't have to push so hard for all the electric stuff.
Yeah.
AKA, we will see the Hellcat come back.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But who knows,
Yeah.
really? It's so hard to,
Yeah.
it's anybody's guess, I guess. What are you going to do?
But yeah, Gene sent me the article of that Mazda, and he's like, yeah, if that comes out, that's probably the only car I will put my money down and be in wait line for.
Yeah.
You were excited for that car.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. And the fact that it's a rotary, there's something really iconic about that for me.
Well, it's funny, too. I mean, they really stick with that rotary thing for that line of car, the RX line. I guess RX, that means rotary. But if it's only the generator,
Yeah.
then
can go
it's just
forever.
gimmicky now.
Yeah. I mean,
But-
I think there could be some positives, right? It's a super small form factor.
Oh, sure.
So it doesn't take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
It could be a lot
It's
more.
pretty efficient, too. So
Yeah. And then it would be minor. There's a guy on YouTube who is like exclusive, and he like built his own RX-7, Rob Dom.
heard the name.
Yeah, super into rotaries. But in one of his videos, he mentioned that if the rotors are running at like their most efficient, they're actually like at a specific RPM, they can be both efficient and like relatively eco-friendly.
Yeah.
So I imagine that's probably what Mazda's doing, is if they can just have it run at one speed, then it could prevent apex seals from falling apart, and it could maintain some level of efficiency for really small size.
Sure.
So I think that there's some there's some benefit there, but yeah, I think there is a bit of a gimmick there as well.
Sure.
Plus, the other thing is, it's been, 2004, 2008 was the last Mazda rotary engine? Something like that with the RX-8?
Yeah, I think 2004.
We're almost 20 years of technology of Ford with
Yeah.
the rotary. What has improved since then?
Yeah.
Especially if you're not using it to drive the wheels, you're going to make that engine last a lot longer now.
Yeah. Well, and a smaller displacement too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you do have to still rebuild them, I mean, I haven't personally touched a rotary engine, but I've heard from old people, because there's not very many moving parts, they're fairly easy to rebuild,
Yeah.
you know?
I did a little deep dive into how they all work and that, because I was, back in the day, you'd hear all about these rotary engines, and there's diehard rotary engine guys.
Yeah.
Oh, I love them and this and that. And I'm like, I don't even understand the technology. So you do a deep dive and it's like, oh, so this is how that works. It's definitely a different concept.
You want to explain to our listener that don't
No,
know
I don't
this?
think I can.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a definitely way different.
Yeah, for me, it was a visual thing. I had to see how it worked, how the it's not even a round rotary. It's kind of an elliptical shape,
Yeah.
right?
It like tumbles.
It's
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
I think the best way to put it is, because it's shaped like a triangle.
Yeah.
You have it
With round sides.
As it rotates, it has one side that sucks in air.
Yep.
And as the triangle gets over a certain point, it makes a seal.
Yep.
So the air is now in a pocket.
Uh-huh.
Gets to the next point where a spark is injected.
Yep.
Like a combustion, so
Right.
it's now squeezed.
Compresses
And then it rotates out to the next side, and exhaust comes out.
Yeah.
So we have the three
Cycles.
and then
and
just
each
rotates.
one of those sides does the same thing.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you don't need
Yeah.
a valve
It
system.
just
You
keeps
don't
going
need-
and going. Yeah.
You don't have to have so many moving parts. You just have a rotor that spins.
Yeah, that's a great point. So there are very few moving parts
Right.
in terms of like energy efficiency of translating the energy from the combustion to rotational energy.
Yep.
It is very efficient, but then you have the problem of like, okay, those apexes when that triangle creates that seal, if there's excessive force against it
Yep.
or excessive knock or something like that, then it can cause those seals to wear really quickly.
That's where your wear comes from. Yeah.
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 And so to combat this, the other problem is that your combustion chamber also has to be lubricated. And so that's where like emissions becomes kind of a problem, where if you're
Yeah, they wanted a certain amount of blow by, right, in order to continually lubricate.
you effectively are, and Mazda did this like kind of poorly with the RX-7, like both of their RX-7s or all generations of the RX-7. So Mazda used the same oil that's in your in like engine oil, and engine oil is not really great for combustion.
Right.
So there's a little area that squirts engine oil into your combustion chamber, and that's what's supposed to lubricate your apex seals. It does a poor job of doing that. So what a lot of people, especially the diehards like Rob Dahm, is they premix.
Yeah.
So like you would do in like a 2-stroke engine.
Yep.
Lawnmower.
Yeah, exactly. Lawnmower, your chainsaw, because that oil is much more. It's designed to be
to burn.
combusted,
Right.
And it's a lot cleaner and it's more efficient, and it actually lubricates properly rather than just being this like motor oil we're squeezing into the combustion chamber.
So do they then block off the oiling port in the motor, and then they just use, or do they reroute, or they premix the gas as it goes in?
I've heard it's the premix, and then you have to make sure those ports are open, because it's still doing its thing. But you premix, if I remember, because I think I've seen one of his videos of Dom was talking. It's every other tank he mixes,
Okay.
so that way But it's if you're keeping your ports open,
Yeah,
Keeping the ports open, you mean,
Like-
how do you mean?
like
Open to the,
how it is from factory.
yeah.
Yeah, without having to
Without plugging them off.
Correct.
So it's not, so it's still then pulling engine oil?
Yeah.
Oh.
So and it's critical in those cars to watch your engine, check.
Oh,
your
yeah,
oil.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say for certain. I've never owned a rotary or really worked on. I just know the
I have
theory.
not either.
But yeah, cool concept. I wish there were more. I wish there was more support, because it's so different than like a standard cylinder engine.
It is a different concept. It's kind of cool, but yeah, the oiling thing's kind of weird. Also, when I was looking that up, I noticed that they use a lot of those a lot might be overstating it, but they use rotary engines similar to that for airplanes. So
Yeah.
kind of makes sense the way they operate without the valves and that kind of stuff. Fewer moving parts. Yeah, interesting. Pretty cool.
Yeah, they're high RPM. I think is why they use them in.
Well, airplanes don't necessarily run at high RPM though. I mean, like 3,000 RPM is your max on a prop plane. So they run pretty low, unless you're running turboprops. That's a little bit different. And
Yeah,
those are typically run off of kerosene, jet fuel.
Yeah. But when you get into jets, though, those have like 20,000 RPM.
Yeah, but those are jets.
Those are
Yeah.
jets.
That's different. It's not
Probably
a
higher
rotary.
than that even.
Yeah.
It's not a rotary type motor.
Okay, true on that one.
Yeah. So just
Yeah, I was kind of touching on that Wankel motor a little bit, like looking into it.
You're wanking it?
he's got a motor to do that for him.
So
And there it is.
they come factory like as a 1.3 liter, and it's only 2 rotors, right? And I started going down that. Well, how hard would it be to build a 4 rotor? Because like if you listen to the videos where they build the 4 rotors and they run them up the hill climbs and stuff,
Right.
man, they sound amazing.
Well, weren't they kind of a what would you call it? A modular system. So you
Yes.
could, okay. So you could just
stack
bolt
them.
stack them together.
Yeah.
You can, but you have to find somebody that will build or has built or sells the 4 rotor connecting rod or the crankshaft.
The crank.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I mean, modular system would be kind of cool if it were just, like a
Lego?
a male female shaft. You just bolt them together. Literally, the crank fits together and just goes. That would be really
Yeah,
kind of a sweet system.
I think the biggest I've seen was a 12 rotor.
That is wild.
Yeah.
that's insane.
Yeah.
That's a lot of rotors.
I know, right?
And the more rotors you stack, the more rotational force there is. So,
yeah.
and the more rotational force, it can
Twist.
twist itself, or it can twist the rotor housing apart.
Oh.
So they have to like reinforce the housing, and there's like heating issues you have to worry about because of the, if there's like the meat of the hamburger is going to get hotter than the sides.
Yeah. I mean, and how
It's a good
how
way
does
to
the
put it.
cooling how does the cooling bolt together? Like for water cooling, do the jackets fit together or is there none? Is it all air cooled? How does that even work?
Yeah, so I think the cooling runs through the housing.
Okay.
But I've never built a rotor engine, so
We're all speculating here.
yeah.
We need to find somebody.
I think I know someone.
do.
I actually do know someone who's a rotor expert.
Ooh,
There
we
get
go.
them on the show.
This sounds like another show.
That would be fun.
I was looking at that next subject. I'm going to let you take it.
Which one? The 24-hour excursion project?
Yeah.
How would you like to start that, Gene?
Oh, that was a good time. So Grant has Ford Excursion for the listeners that don't know.
Oh, boy.
And for a period of time, he had the engine out. And as a result, there was some surface rust on the engine or something to that effect.
It had a point where I stopped driving it for I think 9 months. I was driving Liger and some other things, but what we found was it was running a lot rougher, and taking a look into the bore, one of the cylinder heads had leaked and it caused pitting in one of the cylinders.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so from that moment on, I was like, I need a new engine for this truck. This is before we bought the Porsche.
Because we took the excursion up there.
Yeah. So it leads on to that story eventually. So I had to buy a new engine for it, or low mileage, or figure something out. And what had happened was, searching through, I think, Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever, I found an exact excursion of my excursion. Same color, same year, same engine, same everything. Okay. And it was a low mileage. I think it was, 120,000 miles on the engine or something like that?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
It was something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And so we were talking to the guy, and he's like, yeah, I've got this still available. You're welcome to have it. There's a catch, though, because I think at the time he was only asking like $1,000 or something really low for this engine. 6.9 liter V10, because I didn't want to have to do any crazy diesel swap to it, or wanted to plug and play. The catch was we had to go to his house, and we had to remove the engine ourselves from it.
So he wasn't selling the whole rig. He was just selling the motor out of it?
Correct.
Interesting. Okay.
And any other parts we wanted.
Gotcha.
So that being said, I was like, Gene, are you free? what are you doing on this weekend?
Let's do it. Yeah.
I grabbed him and I grabbed Antonio. We grabbed an F-150 long bed at the time. And we loaded up with all sorts of tools. We really packed it full of tools.
Yeah, I took some of my tools, like anything we're going to need. And you can need, anything you've got, you should bring.
The hardest part about it, and the guy let us know beforehand, was where the excursion was parked was not on cement and not on asphalt. It was on dirt.
Yeah.
So we had to figure out a way to get this engine out, get out efficiently within a time frame to remove it on dirt itself. So we brought like a picker, we brought cardboard, because then we could put wood under that, which would make somewhat of a temporary roadway. And when we got there, we were surprised. The guy's like, yeah, I've got hacksaws if you need, whatever, because we were originally just unbolting it.
Yeah.
For excursions, the easiest way to access the engine is remove the body and lift up on the lift. Well, when you don't have that, you got to go from the front, which is a big front end, right, Gene?
Yeah. We were, I at one point I was like inside of the engine bay trying to, we were doing all sorts of stuff to get that engine out. The cooling system hadn't been drained.
No,
there's like
I forgot about that.
5 gallons or something of coolant in there. And this is all just like outside on his lawn next to his house. So we woke up pretty early in the morning. We got there. Yeah.
We left at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And we got there around like 7. We were hauling ass, getting everything together. And it was us and our buddy Antonio. And I really think we were really efficient. The guy was surprised how efficient we were on a game plan.
So you didn't bring engine hoist or anything?
No, we brought.
Oh, you did bring one.
We brought a picker, but again, it wasn't super efficient because it's on dirt.
Yeah.
So we had to build a pathway for the picker to get that out.
Yeah.
And when we were getting from it, we had to verify for him what was okay to cut up, what's not. And he's like, at the point where we actually arrived, he's like, "Here's hacksaws. Go at it. Whatever you guys don't do at the end, I'm junking.
Oh.
I'm sending to the junkyard tomorrow."
You should have just towed it home.
So yeah.
Well, the
Sawzall.
Yeah. I don't know if Grant had mentioned, but this car had been rolled. It was in rough. I don't think it could have. I don't think it could have driven away on its own or rolled away on its own chassis because it was twisted.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that was not mentioned.
Yeah. So what was nuts was we eventually got the engine out, got everything ready, and I think it was like 3 in the afternoon or 4. It was already a long day. It was, and as it was out, we're like, okay, now we have to figure out how to get in the truck.
Right.
Which again we did, and then it gets later, like 6. And I had the idea, I'm like, wow, we're already this close. Why don't we do the transmission as well?
Ugh.
Have low mileage on that. And in order to get that, I'm like, we don't have anything to get out, no jacks. But I'm like, it's dirt. Let's just dig a hole underneath it, and then we can fit underneath it to rip it out. So we started taking that out. And then as that's going through, I'm like,
what time of year was this?
This was November, October.
Oh.
No, it wasn't cold out. It was okay. Gosh, when was this?
Because that makes a big difference, because it's dark now.
Yeah, it was dark already.
Okay.
It was dark.
We had all sorts of lights. That's one thing, if you know about me as a mechanic, I have lights galore, right, Gene?
Yeah.
So we start getting on that thing. We get the transmission out. We load that too, and then the guy's like, and even before this happened, he was recommending other things. So we brought an instrument cluster, took that out, got different, infotainment systems. And mind you, while I'm doing this, I'm being careful, and Gene's freaking out because I didn't realize this. There was needles on the inside because the owner before him was a druggie. He bought that truck for this engine specifically because he had an F350 that motor was going to go in.
Oh.
But he didn't know at the time that when the 2005 350s came out, they changed over to a 3-valve instead of a 2-valve.
Oh.
So he's like, I can't have anything to do with this excursion. I just need to get rid of it. And everyone who shows up don't want to put the work into it. You guys are the first guy to show up.
Interesting.
So, as I'm like moving these needles over, G's like, be careful. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, it's a fight.
Those are like uncapped needles.
Yeah.
Sitting out in a car that's been exposed to the elements. That's
hepatitis C there.
Yeah.
The owner was really
lucky.
cool. We didn't stop for anything. In fact, he's like, you guys need to take a break. And I'm like, no, we got to keep going. And he's like, I'm going to get you guys lunch. And we're like, really? He's like, yeah, he brought us
so
tacos
nice.
because he just couldn't believe we were just going nonstop.
Wow. All right.
We were having a good time. We were laughing. We were joking the whole time. It was, if someone listening is like interested in pulling an engine, get some of your friends together and do it.
Oh, so fun.
You get some good memories that
We got
way.
some good pictures too, because when we finally got that engine out, though, also, and on the hoist, we got like pictures comparatively. It was like twice the size of me.
Oh, that's a beast of a
Huge
motor.
engine.
Yeah.
And what was nice was we were able to cut some corners. Like, instead of having to unclamp hoses and things like that, we're like,
Sawzall.
let's just, sawzall, cut them off.
Yeah.
Same thing with like bumpers and other things like that were,
Just in the way.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
cut
there
it.
were, we cut through some like pretty big components.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they were kind of smashed because the car, if you can imagine, is
And it was
old.
interesting because we had to make a game plan, because even though you can cut anything, the problem is if you cut it in the wrong time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
then things shift in the car where you can't access then, or someone's got to be don't want to make sure they're underneath, or make sure if you cut that, is the engine going to fall? Is it going to be cradled? How's all this going? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, we did things pretty strategically. I remember it was a really well coordinated effort, and we were communicating really well and joking. It was a great time.
Yeah, but by the time we got everything loaded, I think it was like 11 o'clock or so, and we're talking
Holy cow.
load. So we had a super cab 2017 F-150 8-foot bed, and we had not only fully load the bed with parts, wheels, transmission, engine, I can't even think, drive shaft, I don't know, and interior parts. The back of the cab, because of super cab, we load that completely, and luckily we had 3 guys with us, so luckily we had the pop-up seat in the middle, so we had someone sit in the middle. We had that going. It's been a long day, and the guy's like, "Are you guys sure you have to go? Yeah, we gotta get back." It's like, so we take off at midnight, leaving to go back to Portland. Okay,
Where was it at?
this was in Bend,
Oh, okay.
so it's midnight. We're going
Madras.
over.
It was in Madras.
It's Madras.
Yeah.
And we're going over Mount Hood, and I'm driving. I'm tired as can be, and Gene's like, wake up. As we're driving through, I'm like, I think I made it halfway through before I started hallucinating. He's like, dude, you got to
Grant,
stop.
let me drive.
Yeah, because I kept thinking there was
over.
deer, and you don't want to slam on your brake that full. I'm like,
Oh, no.
So we eventually swapped, and he's wide awake because he's scared that we're going to die.
Yeah.
Antonio's passed out, and I'm just like trying to stay awake. And every time I close my eyes, I wake up. I'm like, oh, we're in Sandy. Oh, we're already in Port. Oh, we're in Wow, this is amazing. And she just wired.
Yeah.
By the time we got home, I think was about 3-something a.m.
Yeah.
Right? And I couldn't believe it. He still drove home after that, and made it the full 24 hours.
Oof.
Yeah.
We
We did it.
It was nuts. Yeah, that was a wild journey, but it was fun with friends. It was one of those adventures where you get your buddies together, have fun, like we were saying,
Yeah.
But also, it was cool to have it where we all had a goal in mind, what we wanted to get done, and we got it done.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, if you have something of that caliber of what we did, I mean, essentially we cannibalized the truck heavily. Most people give up. They're like,
That's a super long day, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, woof.
Yeah.
Man, that's a rough one.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
And
then-
it's not just driving out there and back. It's all the work in between.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to package up you brought some saran wrap. We just saran
I
wrapped the
forgot about
crap
that.
out of the
Yeah.
engine. It started raining.
Oh, of course.
But thankfully it was raining it started raining after we had got the engine out. So
Yeah.
we were able to, kind
I-
of package it up.
I think when we were getting on the mountain, it started snowing, light snow. That was the other thing that was
about
messing
right.
me up, because that's where the rain happened.
Sure.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
and literally that truck was way overloaded.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
we
we
had to have been on the bumpers.
Oh,
I mean, just put the motor alone in the back of a half ton and it squishes it.
yeah. I mean, think of this: we put an entire drivetrain minus the axle onto an F-150. Essentially, we
Right.
pretty much put an Excursion on an F-150.
Yeah.
Did you take the wheels as well?
We took the wheels. That's why the extra set over there. We
And the
took-
transmission.
And the transmission.
Yeah.
We took trim panels off that, literally
yeah.
quarter panels. I forgot
Oh,
about
that's
we
a
took-
half ton of
We took
material.
the
right
entire cluster, like half the parts that are on my shelf are extra Excursion parts. Either I took off or whatever in my shop right now.
Yeah, Grant was like, what could I use?
In fact,
All of
the Raspberry
exactly.
Pi that we found one that was in there. I didn't know what it was originally. I just took the infotainment system. That's the one that's going in the arcade cabinet that Jeremy's building. I eventually modified it and made it work in that Excursion.
Yeah.
It's probably time to sell all those parts, by the way.
Yeah, the Excursion's probably going to be gone soon, and that'll be going. But what's nice is with those parts and with Ford, is they're like Legos, and we have 350s and 250s at our shop, and it's just
there's a
good
lot
to
of
have extra
interchangeable stuff there.
Yeah, and that was a big thing. Was also like anything that we could have used from that excursion, could use on anything else, So that was a fun trip.
Yeah, that was a fun trip. I think about that sometimes. And
Yeah.
what a good time.
Yeah, I mean that's not all the times we had. Like the next segment we were going to talk about was just the late nights that we'd have just working on Liger.
Oh yeah.
Gene's been there through the thick and thin of it, like crazy.
You're a trooper.
Hey, I enjoy it. I've always liked tinkering. Yeah, it's just something I get some satisfaction out of it.
Pick up a wrench and watch Grant bounce off the walls.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Gene has been there multiple times where I've just been sleep deprived. And when you hear a Grant that's well, you've heard a Grant.
Oh, I know.
Every time.
I know Grant sleep deprived.
It become much
Fully
more
aware.
louder.
Uh-huh.
So
12 a.m. and they're on the Vegas Strip.
yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I remember the one time we had just got Liger fired up. She'd been down for like 4 or 6 months, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it was a test run without the exhaust.
Oof.
And I think it was midnight, and you and me, we just had got the transmission after we just swapped it. And anything. Fired up for the first time, and you're like, and I always remember this, like, oh my God, it's straight piped.
Yeah.
This sounds so cool. And in
sounds
my
so good.
delirium, like,
Yeah.
do I want to make it straight pipe now? That does sound really cool. No, I need to keep it not that loud, but God, it sounds really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I just can't remember. Oh man, that's so cool. I think we have a video of that.
There is.
It did sound good though.
So, Gene, I wanted to ask you about your working setup. I mean, you don't have much of it now. Maybe you do, but it sounds like you don't do a whole lot of project stuff now. But like when you were working on it, was it bare bones? Did you just pick up just what you needed to get the job done kind of deal?
Do you mean working like
Tools and,
Oh, yeah.
and setup, basic backyard project car guy. I mean, we kind of talk about this every once in a while, just like what it takes to do the job, whether it's a bare minimum and what we can get away with and still accomplish what we want to accomplish.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset where you keep your tools. Like I can get rid of
Forever.
projects,
Thick
but
and-
I will not get rid of my tools.
There you go.
That's what my dad taught me. That's how I'm going to teach future generations. You keep your tools. But yeah, you can do quite a bit with like a relatively like sparse tool set.
Yeah.
You're gonna need some wrenches. You're gonna need some just some basics. But I have a welder. It's like pretty simple welder, but it gets the job done.
Sure.
It's a stick welder, right?
Yeah, it's a stick welder. Yeah, it's just a simple Harbor Freight, and that's some of my stuff is Harbor Freight, and it does the job.
Yeah. I think all of us have some Harbor Freight tools.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's just it. You buy what you need. If you only need it once, you're probably okay buying Harbor Freight.
Yeah. There's a YouTube channel. I think it's called Project Farm.
Yes.
You've probably all seen it. He's a guy who like tests different tools and tests everything.
Yep.
And he does it like really scientifically. But I usually, if I'm like, do I need this tool? I always look at it like, does he have some insight there?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you can get away with like a really pretty simple set of tools. But if you have really like more refined tools, you get the job done more quickly, more efficiently. You got to have a torque wrench. I'm of the mindset where if there's torque specs, you follow those torque specs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially working on like an aluminum engine or, on the Grom especially, or you're dealing with like, 12 foot-pounds or something. You can't over torque it because you're going to, you're going to run into one hell of a project after that.
Right.
But yeah, you can do a lot with very little.
Yep. Just pick up what you need and go from there. I've always liked taking on maybe a new project, but you're like, all right, what specialty tools do I need for this?
Yeah.
Because I'll go ahead and buy it,
Yeah.
because I'll run into it again down the road or whatever. And if it saves me a little bit of time or money on the way, then cool.
Yeah.
That's where you get your coffee maker.
That's where I get my
Coffee maker.
yes. Milwaukee coffee maker. Still don't have one in my garage.
Yes. I heard
We're
that.
waiting for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there. But I don't know, just like replacing ball joints or something. I'll go buy a bunch of fittings or a press or, and I'll use that again. I don't, Like you said, don't get rid of your tools.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I always like adding a tool here and there.
Yeah, I can always justify buying a tool
Yeah.
too. It's like, oh, that's a no-brainer. I need that.
Absolutely.
Whereas like a part for your car, like I don't need the part, but I need the tool.
But I got the tool.
So yeah, may as well get the part.
Yeah. What about if a
Backwards
tool,
math, but I'll take it.
What if a tool becomes too big or obsolete? Is there a time to
obsolete.
get rid of it?
I was actually thinking about that.
How does a tool get too big?
Like you have a tire changing tool, you know,
Oh.
or say like a lift,
Yeah.
you know, or a picker. Like is there a point like because people move or whatever? Is that something you still keep, or is it something like move on and get something else?
Yeah, I think because I see like engine pickers or whatever on Marketplace. Either they've got a new one or they're not into cars anymore. So yeah, I think some of those things can go away because they're fairly inexpensive to pick up another one if you need it,
Yeah.
you know, but your hand tools, I don't think you ever get rid of that until you're, you know, in the grave.
Well, then what about obsolete tools? Like for example, we talk about
Yeah.
torque wrenches and stuff gets different calibrations at times, or
Well,
you know,
if it's worn out, you got to replace it. Yeah. Obsolete. Because I was actually thinking about that yesterday. I was out in the shop and I've got this a pretty nice welder. It's a stick and MIG. It's got a remote to it. I only ever MIG with it, but even that technology is getting, I don't know, kind of old. It works fine. I'll probably hang on to it for another 10 or whatever years, but anymore when I weld something, I TIG weld it. So that welder just sits there. Do I get rid of it? Nobody's going to want it. It's old. You know,
some of the older welders better. So like I like having newer welders, but I've met guys who swear by like welders from like the 40s or 50s because they're just very consistent. They do the exact same thing.
yeah.
You know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah, in terms of obsolete, the things that come to mind would be like an OBD2 scanner or something like that. That's just kind of in a like 20-year-old OBD2 scanner. I don't know if those exist, but I'm sure that something like that where it's not really applicable now, and you need something newer with
Be able to read more codes.
Yeah.
exactly.
Newer
Or
vehicle.
current codes?
So something like that, I would see no issue replacing. But yeah, I had a hoist that I also got rid of just because it took up a lot of space and I didn't really use it.
What about battery tools? At some point, people are going to invest in, like, for example, you invest in Milwaukee, DeWalt, whatever.
Yep.
They're going to change over time. Either it's 20 years, 30, whatever. When's that point? You can still buy replacement batteries for them, but
Some you can't, though.
sometimes, yeah.
And like you said, the obsolescence of it. So the 12-volt stuff is pretty much, you can still get some,
yeah.
Almost gone. Yeah.
but it's almost gone. So, yeah, once those batteries are dead, that tool is no longer, really, because we're all 18 and 20 and 24 volt, whatever it is now. So, yeah, you're right. I think those get obsolete and you're kind of stuck with either upgrading or I don't know what else,
Yeah.
not using them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've upgraded mine. I had Ryobi years ago, and the batteries were $50 a piece. So I ended up buying a new set of, God, I can't remember what. Anyway.
Some other brand.
Yeah, some other brand anyway. And, I'm just waiting for either the batteries to die or one of those tools to die, and I'll go buy another set.
Right. And that's kind of one of those things, like we talk a lot about Milwaukee, and I have Makita, Milwaukee, and the other DeWalt stuff. I have some of all of it, right? The DeWalt stuff is almost dead. I can still use the Sawzall, but the batteries don't last very long. So once that battery is done, that whole system goes away. I'm done with it. So you just hope when you do invest in, like Milwaukee now is what I invest in, you hope that they keep providing those batteries for as long as possible. Because it's a big investment. That shit's expensive.
Yeah.
Those screw guns or drills or impacts, you invest $400 on a tool with one or two batteries. You hope that it lasts a while. Good job.
Sorry.
Good job.
Don't die.
Yeah, don't
Sorry
die.
about that. I was trying to say it does. I also don't think it depends on the battery. It depends on the mechanism for the battery because they can evolve to bigger batteries or different style. But as long as you can physically put in connect it, right?
Agreed, but they have to be the right voltage. You can't take, the 18-volt tool and put a 20-volt battery in it. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're
Yeah.
reverse sort of backwards compatible,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
then
but I don't-
you're relying on the
yeah.
company to
Make
to,
it happen.
to make that
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And I don't think they are backwards
Yeah.
compatible.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, yeah, you're relying on the company either way to either continue to produce that tool
Yeah.
or make it work somehow. And of course, you want the bare tool itself to continue to work. That's actually the cheap part. The battery is the expensive part.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'm doing with Snap-on right now.
Yeah, throw it all away. Sell it.
Yay.
Somebody's willing to buy it.
Probably.
Probably a collector. It's all old.
Or somebody that's got a battery sitting at home.
Just a museum of
A museum of
dead
Snap-on.
things.
Somebody's got the
Work.
battery at home, but their driver died,
There you go. Yeah, list that on eBay.
There you go. Perfect.
There's a market for it.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I always find it kind of interesting what we're all in the garage trying to work with.
Yeah.
How big of a project do you dive into that engine project and you barely have hand tools?
Yeah.
Or, some people do.
Yes.
They're not scared.
Hell yeah, dive right in.
Yeah.
Go buy what you need.
Eventually, yeah, you get in there, you're like, oof, I am over my head.
I feel like the bare minimum of what you're gonna need is like an impact gun of some kind, just to save your hands.
Yeah.
Boy, anymore.
Yeah.
Electric ratchet.
Electric
Would be
ratchet.
nice.
Yeah, I'm
They're
kind of
handy.
looking at those right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Handy.
Huh. Nope. I haven't seen that.
Do you not have one of those, Rob?
No.
If you do get one, I recommend getting a long reach one. Mm-hmm. Those are super handy.
I could see that being handy, yeah.
Yeah.
I used one of Grant's, I think the one he's referring to, and it was life changing.
Yeah.
I don't have one, but every time I need one, I think about that.
It's because
What
when
kind of torque does it turn to, like taking bolts off?
So let's just say my Snap-on one, for example. I've got two of them, two long reach ones.
Okay.
One's for fast speed at 35 foot-pounds, and one's at heavy speed at 75 foot-pounds.
Okay.
So
In the off direction.
in the off direction, correct?
So,
And on.
because
and on.
you got to be careful with the on part, but I could totally see that being super handy. When you're reaching down next to the motor, you have zero swing for a ratchet, right? You might get one click, or you have to,
Yeah.
take it off, readjust it to get a half a click, and then I freaking hate that. But if you could just put a powered ratchet on it,
Well, the
that'd
thing
be
with the
kinda
power ratchet is typically a lot of the time the body's way thicker than the actual
Yeah.
head itself.
Yeah.
And so when you're trying to get in those tight spots, you can't get it because you could maybe fit the head in a couple inches.
Right.
So the long reach one keeps the head the same narrow while having 12 inches of extra room. So you can fit it in there in those tight spots.
Yeah. No, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I could see that. Useful
Nice
tool.
time-saving tool.
Yeah.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. All right. Moving on.
Okay.
Moving on.
You're going to have that in your cart later, aren't you?
Probably.
Christmas is coming up.
Yeah, I think I'm going to also.
On my list,
To
yeah.
Christmas shop for myself. So
I'll let you know about the deals because I'm actually looking one for myself.
yeah.
Gotta switch all my Milwaukee stuff. So.
Put my name on one.
Hell yeah.
Send us that link.
Oh,
All right.
actually, real fast. Okay,
go for
one more thing on that topic.
Oh.
Milwaukee does make an electric ratcheting torque wrench.
Electric ratchet. So it just it goes until it hits the proper torque. I think I've seen that, actually.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
bigger and bulkier, but yeah, they have.
That
gonna-
makes
that
me
was
so
sick.
nervous.
I agree. I like to feel that
Yeah.
pressure because just tighten it down. when it's
Well,
you're like, nope.
Yeah.
It's
gonna
nice
go.
because
I don't want to go any further.
You could always back it off until it gets to that point. And I believe it gets there, and then you could also just normal crank it like a
Well, the other
the
thing
next
you
step.
could do is set it up to go 5 inch-pounds lower.
yeah, that's,
Right.
And then put your other
then
torque
do it.
wrench
Right.
on and
Yeah.
check it.
Yeah.
I always do that. I set it a little lower, and then I just kind of creep it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I'm with you.
Yeah, I go
I
it's
go in
just
like
me.
5 foot-pound increments.
I'm sure we've all been in a situation where we over torqued something and
Oh yeah.
broken a bolt or something.
Yep.
Yep.
I've got a couple that are stripped out right now that I've got to oversize.
Oh,
and
for
put
shame.
bolts in.
Sorry.
That's just a matter of. I mean, it's. I'm putting the Corvette back together.
Yeah.
I'm putting the drivetrain, the bell housing and the torque tube and all that. Well, that's all aluminum stuff, and that has been in and out of that car 30 times.
Oh, yeah.
So I found 2 or 3, maybe it's 3. No, I found 2. I fixed one of them last night. I found 3. I fixed one. So I have 2 more that are stripped, basically. It's the torque tube to the bell housing.
So what you're telling me, it's time for JB Weld.
No, I'm just going to go the next size up. There's room, so I'm just going to go oversize it and retap it.
Tap it, yeah.
And that'll be fine. It'll fix it. But that's one of those things where I'm torquing it down, and it's only 36 foot-pounds. But it gets to about 20, and it gives. And I'm like, well, that one's done.
Yeah.
So I had 2 of those. But
Can you helicoil it?
probably could, but oversizing will be just
Better?
Yeah.
Or just as good?
Yeah. So, but that's one of those things, you've taken it in and out of the car 50 times or whatever, and it's aluminum you're dealing with. So, eventually those things sometimes were not exactly torqued, quote unquote. They were just tightened down.
Yeah.
So
Aluminum's not that strong either.
no, it's not. No. And especially if depending on the number of threads that you're going into, which was I think it was like 6 or 8. From looking at the bolt when I pulled it back out, it's not a lot. I mean, there's room for more, but whatever. So that's just the shit we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Let's talk about your personal life.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Phil. So, your everyday profession, you're a doctor?
Yes. Yeah. So, I'm a doctor, a naturopathic doctor, but I deal primarily with men's health. So I deal mostly with like medications, pharmaceuticals. Do a lot of, like hormone management. We do some like sexual health stuff. Typical male-related issues. Men don't usually go to the doctor unless something.
No, I don't.
Something is.
I'm being called out right now.
No, and I'm being very generalized here. I don't mean to call anyone out specifically, but men tend to not go to the doctor until something is pretty significantly impacting their life.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. What got you into that?
So long story short, I just always had the desire to help people. I was really interested in science. It was sort of like a natural progression towards that field. I became more of like a naturally inclined doctor because I just saw that the standard medical practice wasn't it didn't seem to resonate with my beliefs, and I felt like there was more that I could do. And so it was a good way for me to kind of bridge the gap between like traditional medicine and more like natural options. And I think just kind of that perspective. And then I eventually found my current position.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. That's like you had almost a calling. Like that's where you wanted to be.
Yeah. Going through, I went to Portland State University, and a lot of people were some of my classmates. I was like, I want to go into the medical field. I want to go to medical school after this. They're like, no, you'll never do that. Why would you? That's like, what are you going to be, an astronaut?
Yes.
And I was like,
okay.
Yeah, okay. So that almost like maybe want to do it more.
Yeah.
So bring it on.
Right. So whenever I talk to somebody that's a doctor, I'm like, that's a serious commitment. The amount of school.
Oh, yeah.
Like 8 years?
Yeah, so 8 years minimum. So I did it all in 10 years, including my training and all of that. That's after high school.
Dude.
When you're going through it, it's so intense. You're so like, there is an exam almost every day. You're taking like 30 credits worth of schooling in one term. And so you're in it, and you're like not even really thinking about the future. You're like, tomorrow I have another exam. I got to focus on that now. Just
the time commitment to me, it just freaking blows my mind. Like, dude, 8 to 10 years, it's like, what the fuck? Why would you sign up for that?
Yeah. So when I was done, I graduated at 28, and I was like, wow, what the heck? like all of my 20s.
Yeah.
I'm like, nearly 30, and I'm looking around. I have like other friends who have been electricians for like, close to.
They're journeymen now.
Exactly. Yeah. They're making, like 100K plus, or probably a lot more. But in any case, like they're like well into their careers. They've like established like a home. They have like a mortgage, they have a family. And here I am like,
I've got debt.
I got to have like my first job after this, like I've had work, but not like, career level jobs. And exactly. Yeah. I have like, 200 plus thousand medical debt, or not medical, but student loan debt, which is, it's a whole other, whole other aside.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's a big commitment. I do feel fortunate that I was able to get through it. I know other people who like failed out.
What's the dropout rate? It's gotta be big.
It's not that big.
Really?
I would say the dropout rate's maybe like 10%. I guess that is pretty big.
Well,
Is it higher towards the
know.
beginning, like the first couple of years?
Yeah, I know a few who like after the first year they're like, "No, I'm done. I can't do it. I can't do this anymore." A lot of it is also like whatever you're going through in life.
Oh yeah.
Like we had some people go through some health issues. These are like I was one of the younger ones. Some of my other classmates. In fact, we had the oldest classmate ever to have graduated from our school. She was in her 60s when she first started. I know.
Whoa.
It was her dream to become a physician, and she like lived her life, and she was up to that point. She's like, I want to do it now.
Wow.
And she did. She graduated. She became a doctor, which is pretty incredible.
That's gnarly.
With like grandkids.
Yeah.
Like I don't have any attachments. I had I had a girlfriend at the time, and we were in school together, but it wasn't like I had to like give my kids food
Right.
and provide shelter.
Take care of the family.
Exactly. It was like, how can I not die myself? But that's all I really had to focus on.
But the level of commitment, even to follow through with all that, is massive. I mean, mad respect. It's
Thank you. Thank you.
It's that's to anybody that finishes that is insane.
I personally feel like anyone can put their mind to it, anyone can put their mind to something.
Yeah.
It just, for me, it happened to be medicine. For me, it happened to be like this kind of specific thing. But it's, I think if I could do it, anyone could do it. I don't feel like I'm that, I'm like a genius level.
The level of stress, I feel like the level of stress for that would be pretty high because, like you said, there's exams every day, or there's, this is serious stuff. You actually have to learn this shit.
Yeah, I calculated the number of exams and quizzes that I took throughout my medical school career, and it was in the realm of like 800 or 900 exams and quizzes and different like examinations. It becomes so frequent that you almost are like running a marathon.
Yeah.
Like
Every day.
The first few terms, it's definitely like you're stressed. You're like you're frazzled. You're like, whoa, what is going on? It's often referred to as like you're drinking out of a fire hose of information.
For sure.
And that's kind of how it is, where it's like you're learning one subject here in this one class, and then a whole other subject in this other class. And then the more you go on, things get more refined, and you things kind of connect a little bit more.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely a trip. The first few years are a trip.
Yeah. It sounds like too much. I'm not cut out for that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting thing, right? Because you can get a doctorate in things other than being a doctor.
Sure.
So when you go to become a doctor, you go to get your doctorate in medicine, right?
Yeah.
But you can actually go to college for, other things, get your bachelor's degree in that, then go on to get your master's and then a doctorate.
Right.
I think my wife's grandfather was a doctor of like poultry science, like chickens and like fowl.
Chicken doctor.
Colonel?
Oh God.
He seemed like a nice guy. I never met him, but he did seem like a very nice guy.
His name was obviously Popeye.
But yeah,
He wore a
Colonel
white suit and a
Sanders?
black tie.
but if you think about it, doctor is like really going through medical school is no different than going through like any kind of trade school.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
different
just-
type of schooling, different
Yeah.
education, different perspective.
I don't know.
but the
It's
same
always
process.
seemed so much more intense to me. And maybe I've got it wrong in my head, but because I went through trade school, but it wasn't 8 years, you know. I don't know. It just has always seemed like it's like the top level to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's intense, and anyone thinking of going into that field, I definitely urge you to really consider the time commitment, because that's really you're losing out on if you're going like relatively early, you're losing out on your 20s.
Yep.
There's like sort of this common saying of like, you can have in medical school, you can have a relationship, you can have good grades, or you can have a life. Pick two. It's like you really like have to refine what you do, otherwise you just won't get through the program.
Surprised you could pick two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, not everyone could. Yeah.
But yeah, that goes to another question I have then. Do you think, and back to cars then, being that's such a time commitment and it takes up so much of your life, how do you balance being someone who's wants to be a car guy or any kind of hobby on top of it? Because you manage doing car projects, Pokemon, girlfriend. You did a lot while being successful at studying and through school. Like, what kind of advice would you give to someone who's trying to become a doctor?
Don't
bite off more than you can chew.
Gene is like an example of
I
how
know.
it's possible.
Yeah.
So with projects like car stuff, I didn't get into that until I graduated. First off, I didn't have the income for it. I couldn't afford to buy that kind of stuff. With Pokemon cards, like you could get away with playing relatively cheap, cards and stuff. And that was, I think, anytime you're doing an intense program like that, you have to take some time away from it. You have to step away from it.
Give yourself a break.
Yeah, and experience some, like level of normalcy. Otherwise, you just like fall into this weird cycle of taking exams, being stressed, taking exams, being stressed. So yeah, it was a really great way for me to like reconnect with my friends. I was not in a very healthy relationship at that time. We're not going to go into all that detail. But yeah, it was a whole thing. But
I tried hugging him every day, and he's like, "Stop it, Grant." I'm like, "It's not that kind of relationship. I love you, Gene."
No, it was friendship. Having some outlet was so beneficial. I would like once a week, I think Wednesdays or Thursdays or something, we would just hang out. Thursdays, yeah.
Still on my calendar.
We got to do something.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important. And even if you're struggling at school, you have to take that time away from it. You have to step away from it because you just lose sight of why you're there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think then if someone was to take over a car project of any kind, whether it's a small one or like a full restoration, while going through school like that, that would be too much of an overload? Or do you think it's actually possible?
If they have the budget for it, if they have the space for it, I think it's totally possible. It's not a whole lot different than like anatomy lab where you're, dissecting a cadaver, and it gets kind of intense. Car has similar component, but there are parts. You're working with your hands. There's a level of tact that you have to have with whatever you're working on. You have to understand the components. So I think it kind of there are some translatable elements there, but. Yeah, it kind of goes back to budget. If you've got the budget, if somehow you have family money, do it. Yeah, get some time in on that project car. Go drive, go to an autocross event. Enjoy
Let your brain do something else for a little while.
Yeah.
So I know Grant had kind of brought this up in some of the topics. Like, do you think studying, becoming a doctor, being a doctor, like in your personality? Seems to me you would need to be very precise, right? Mm-hmm. And do you think that lends itself to projects? It could be a car, it could be a motorcycle, whatever, but that precision, you want everything just so, you want everything to be perfect or however you see it in your mind. You think that helps you as a project, a car guy or a project car guy?
Yeah, I think so. It definitely can also hurt in the sense of like, oh, I'm not done.
It's not perfect.
Yeah, it's
yet.
not perfect.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the, like with cars, things just are never, I mean, I've never found things to be perfect. I don't have any, anything like super fancy. Maybe, what's that, the Zonda or something. Maybe that's like a perfect car. But I always find that there's like, oh, this needs to be tweaked or this needs to be tweaked. So it can be like that little bug in your head telling you, you can change this or you have to fix that. But that's also part of the fun. So I get some enjoyment out of that. I get satisfaction out of it. And when I'm finished with a project or finished with a part of a project, I feel a sense of satisfaction. I think I chase that high.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do, project people, whether it's cars or bikes or boats or whatever they're doing. I think there's that satisfaction level. Excuse me, when you complete something or, even halfway through you see your project coming together and you're like, yes, this looks great. It kind of gives you that bump of energy to keep going. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of cool. So when I think of people becoming doctors and that kind of stuff, the residency portion seems like hell. Is it? Mm-hmm. Is it complete hell?
It's a lot. Yeah. Your first few years out of school are like you're drinking out of a fire hose, but almost double, because then there's like oversight. You have other providers that you're working with, or attending staff who are like, oh, you think you know what you're doing, but you actually don't yet. Can you kind of explain for our listeners? Maybe there's somebody that doesn't know exactly what residency is. So residency is like an internship, effectively, where you're working under another doctor, or you're working in another in a setting where there's oversight, and you have your own patients, but you're learning more on the job. It's almost like an apprenticeship. I can put it like that. Yeah. And residents are, generally speaking, like bottom of the totem pole.
Sure.
So you don't get to like set your own hours most of the time if you're working like a big hospital. I luckily didn't have to deal with that. But there's a level of respect you're not necessarily allotted.
Yeah.
You kind of have to work like tougher hours, and you have to work more hours, and you get paid pretty poorly.
Yeah.
In most cases, residency programs are based on the number of hours you're working. You're getting paid like just a little bit over minimum wage.
Oh wow!
But then once you're done with your residency program, then you do get paid a lot more. You're more respected, and I think it's the culture of the residency programs has gotten better. If anyone's ever watched any medical TV shows, like there's definitely they kind of
dramatize it, maybe
dramatize it certainly. But there's definitely some level of like people getting taken advantage of that exists for sure. That culture is still there.
Well, is it still possible, like how economy and everything, if you're like making just above minimum wage, if someone's trying to become a doctor, go into that kind of, is it actually possible to live that way without going into a second job? I can't imagine trying to pay for an apartment and food while making, $15 an hour.
Yeah, I mean, you're making $15 an hour, but you're working like, let's say 80 hours a week or more. So you're making enough to get by, and
you have no time to spend money because you're always working.
Yeah, there's also that too, and it really depends. Some residency programs aren't that way. Mine, I didn't have to deal with anything like that. So,
they make tax incentives for residents then? Because you're working so many hours for like overtime and stuff, There
isn't a tax incentive that I know of, but they often have some type of like support or something like that if needed. Like sometimes they can provide housing, or they can find affordable housing for you through the residency program or through the hospital or something that you're working for. But yeah, it really all depends. There's not, as far as I know, there's not like any tax specific breaks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I gotta know though, Gene, what show is most accurate?
What show is most accurate?
Scrubs? Is it?
Is it Scrubs?
Oh man,
Probably not Scrubs.
No. What's the other one? Is it The House? Is
Grey's
it,
Anatomy.
Oh my gosh,
yeah, Grey's
House.
Anatomy. Is it? What's that one I've been watching lately?
House is definitely not accurate.
No.
He's like super dysfunctional. I've seen a lot of dysfunction, and I worked in a clinic where we did a lot of like drug testing as one part of the clinic, like just urine drug tests, blood drug tests, and part of that was we would get medical professionals who were caught using some type of substance. Most of it was like self-reported. But some of it was, people got pulled over for drunk driving, and look at that, you also have a medical license. We need to make sure that you're safely working with people.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There were a number of medical professionals we would get that would be, if they're caught, they go through this whole program that's like 5 or 10 years long, where they just do routine drug testing, random drug screens.
Interesting.
And yeah, those are pretty intense programs, but it definitely happens. So people, can get substance use disorder and fall into that, even if they're medical professionals.
I gotta know.
Especially if they're,
I gotta know.
High stress.
yeah.
I gotta know. Did you have a Dr. Cox in any of the hospitals you worked in?
Oh,
remember that
no.
character?
We had a couple funny ones. We didn't have any Dr. Coxes though. We had a girl I graduated with, and I swear to God this is true. Her name was, and I shouldn't say her first name, but her last name was Doctor. Doctor. Yes, I'm not even kidding.
Oh my
Doctor,
God. That's amazing.
Doctor. It is. Yeah, she was born for the job.
So good.
So yeah, that was her real name. There were some other funny
How does
ones.
that even happen?
It's so good.
I don't know.
Parents that absolutely love humor.
Yeah,
Well, it's their last name.
yeah. Doctor.
Change your name.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a trip.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy.
Oh man.
And also a struggle for her forever.
Yeah, I mean, she became a doctor, so
Yeah.
yeah.
It was
I
like
feel like there's a joke
foregone
somewhere.
Imagine if she became a
conclusion.
hairstylist.
Doctor, give me the news.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, man. Never heard that one before.
Oh yeah.
Dang.
I'm sure she's heard it all.
Imagine if she had an
yeah.
OnlyFans. She'd be the doctor, love doctor.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Anyways, that was bad.
that was bad. All right, Grant,
Yes, hi, it's me.
carry on.
What?
I don't know. I was looking at your notes.
Yeah.
Trying to make sense of it.
Made a bunch of them.
Yeah, you did.
Gene, are you reading those notes?
Oh yeah.
Let's jump down to the fun one there.
Which
I
one?
know.
Right
Yeah.
there. It says Gene and Racing.
I didn't want to leave anything hanging. So
Well,
you know.
the only thing I really wanted to talk about, and just touch it lastly on the doctor one, is I'm of the opinion I think that mechanics in some regard have a lot of similarities to doctors. Whereas a mechanic, you need to be able to take a car in, diagnose it,
Yep.
and either have it, have technology like a scan or whatever read to you what it could possibly be, or just being so much in the know, like, something's not wrong, something's not right. And I feel like, that's what similarities share with doctors. I don't know, would you agree with that, Gene? Or do you think like they're completely separate animals? They're not anywhere remotely the same.
They're pretty similar, I would say. Like you could use a stethoscope to diagnose like knocking. I think that that people do that. I think that I often, for some of my patients, I like to break things up into like automotive or mechanical. Like blood pressure is very similar to like hydraulic pressure. You don't want it too high. You don't want it too low. Like there's definitely a lot of similarities with that function. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with that analogy too. I mean, mechanics are very much, trying to diagnose something that, especially this is a patient that can't talk to you.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
So maybe more like a veterinarian.
Yeah,
where
almost. Yeah.
Or this animal can't speak to you. I mean, maybe it can through its like growls or whatever. But
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's a pretty good analogy.
Yeah.
All right. I think the only other one that I was kind of curious about is, do you keep any tools in your car?
Like tools, like medical tools,
Yeah,
or okay. So I keep some tools and just a tool kit for sure for mechanically speaking, but I do have some medical equipment in my car. I recommend most people have at least a basic emergency kit.
Yep.
But more important than that is to know what's in your emergency kit and how to use your emergency kit. I keep like a trauma kit in my car, so in case there's like a car crash or something, I could put a tourniquet on somebody. I can address a wound, like field dress a wound before the ambulance shows up.
Right.
I don't think everyone needs that, but if you're depending on where you're going, like say if you're overlanding and you're out in the middle of nowhere, you should take a good amount of equipment with you.
Precautionary stuff, just in case.
But also know how to use it. If you have a tourniquet and you don't know how to use it, it's not going to do you any good.
So my safety kit that's still in the cellophane, that's not should probably open that up, know what's in there.
You just to take a look, or at least look at the bag and familiarize yourself with it. You don't want to be caught in a situation where there's an emergency, someone's needs help, and you don't know what's in your emergency kit.
Right.
But
I have a kit, but I don't know what's in it.
Yeah. And also, I guess it depends on the situation. But if you are in a situation where you're like overlanding or something, you're away from civilization.
Yeah.
Have someone in your party who knows like basic first aid in case there's an issue. But in terms of like medical equipment, I usually have a stethoscope in my car, but that's not something that I use often.
Yeah.
Other arm. There's a bug on you.
No, it's just
Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Sorry,
Just
ADD moment.
keep going.
Oh, it's fine.
It's a stink bug.
Yeah, you can hang out.
Yeah. It kind of looks like a cricket.
Jiminy Cricket.
It's my friend. I brought him with me. I don't have any like really specific equipment other than just a basic trauma kit.
Sure.
I think that's a really helpful thing to have.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's move back to the fun stuff. Back to the car stuff.
Okay. Are we going to talk about the one that's right below racing? I don't know if we're allowed to or not, Gene.
Autocrossing?
No, below that one.
Autocrossing in Miata?
Yeah. You see the one I'm talking about? The PT Cruiser.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Are we allowed to talk about that or not?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, he's not going to get upset?
No, I think he'd have a good time with that.
Okay.
I got a shit.
Clip that out.
I don't even know where we start with this one.
Autocrossing.
You want to start with that instead?
Yeah, well, yeah. We'll
think
get
that's
to
a
the
good
other one.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what is your autocross experience?
So I've maybe raced a couple of times.
Okay.
Not much. I would love to do more, and I will do more in the future.
I'm always dragging Gene kicking and screaming to these events. He's like,
I was like,
go.
I can't. Initially, it's like I had this, an old Nissan Altima, and I was like, I can't take this thing. It's kind of a junker. And Grant's like, you could autocross anything.
Yeah.
And I was
perfect.
like, all right. Yeah. So I did. And it was so much fun. I did terribly. I didn't place. I mean, didn't compete, but
You were adamantly competing against a Prius.
and I think
like
the Prius.
hardcore.
I think the Prius won, which is not terribly surprising. But it was. I had so much fun. It was great to hear the tires squeal. It was.
Isn't it
great
ridiculous?
Yeah.
You can just take your daily out there and just make it do stuff it's not normally supposed to do.
I've only autocrossed a few times, and I don't know how many times I've told people like you've got to try it just so that you have the experience. There's nothing like it where you just have this sense of freedom, and you're like frantically trying to keep up. Like, oh man, I'm supposed to turn here. Oh crud. It's a super super fun experience. So did that a couple times with my Altima. And then eventually I got that Mazda CX-30.
That was cool seeing that.
Started modding it, but it was pretty early in its modding life. Oh,
That was the Mazda.
Yeah.
It's
It's a Bumblebee, I think.
but yeah, now I'd love to take it out now and see how it would do.
Well, we got to set him up with some dates.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So,
so generally,
autocross coming in the future.
yeah, I'd love to take it on a track too, just to
Big track?
experience that.
Gene's going to drive big track before Grant
Don't
does.
even start that.
I will clap
Yeah.
for Gene.
Oh, I know, right?
yeah.
Yeah. High fives all around, except for Grant.
Oh.
And we'll make fun of you.
We'll have the Lambo running for that.
No,
No,
no, you will
my
not.
gosh.
no,
I will adamantly tell you that car is never going on a track.
Yeah.
no.
Oh,
We'd
man.
have to duct tape the doors
I will
closed.
definitely have to finish my will if that happens.
Boom.
Yeah, we'll get you on the big track. That'd be great. We'll
That'd be fun.
do a track day. Just what's that? HPD.
HPD.
Yeah, I don't know. Hooked
Yes.
on driving something.
There you go.
Yeah,
Hey.
The
No, that's
track
awesome.
track night in America or something.
yeah.
Are you planning on getting the big brake kit finished on your car before you do that, you think?
I already have it.
Oh, you already have the big brake kit? I
Yeah,
am-
that was like one of my first mods. Yeah.
How big are those brakes now?
So there is like a true big brake kit for it, but you have to get wheel spacers, and I wanted to keep it looking stock. So I ended up getting the CX-9 is like the full size SUV that Mazda is like their biggest SUV. That's a dual caliper piston, and amazingly it fits over the same bracket. You just need to get different rotor. So I did that, and it works way better. Yeah, the brakes are much better.
Nice.
So it's sort of like a pseudo big brake kit, but
Yeah.
they're
It's bigger than it
yeah,
was.
yeah, much better. There's
Yeah.
like hardly any brake fade at this point. Whereas I could like feel brake fade if I was spirited driving on just back roads.
Well, we'll fix that when you get out on the big track. You'll
Oh
be like,
yeah, yeah.
there's
I
the
might
brake
need to. Yeah. Okay, we'll have to go to the full big brake kit then
Yeah.
at that point.
for sure. I found it. Big brakes. All right. Okay, so now let's talk about your infamous PT Cruiser.
The PT Cruiser. So one of my best friends, Edwin, we could probably say his name.
Probably.
Too late now.
yeah,
Edwin.
yeah, we could-
He's like, you guys, I know you're talking about.
We've talked about him
We've
already.
talked about him before. I'm sure he probably brought up his PT Cruiser before, but so he's had this PT Cruiser. He recently sold, I think maybe a year ago.
They
or
sold it.
Maybe they got rid of it somehow.
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
they donated it. Maybe they still have it. I don't know. They don't drive it anymore. But in any case, this PT Cruiser has outlived every car I've owned except for the Mazda.
Even outlived a lot of projects that I have. I
Yeah.
could not believe the hell that thing went through and still would pass the EQ with all the lights on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So many lights. The plastic was starting to crack. Like every time you got in that car, we would make the joke of like, oh, something new is gonna break, and it did. Like you touch something and like
The radio.
yeah, you touch the radio, and Edwin's like, "Don't touch that," and you do, and it breaks. Or I was sitting there, I was like, "Can I? I need to like the light or the sun was in my eyes, so I take down his sun visor, I break it right off."
Wow.
Then Edwin did the driver's side, and
Yeah.
if you mess with that, then the light would always stay on, so it drained the battery. So you had to not mess with it, so it'd
Yeah.
stay a certain route.
Yeah, there was one point where, and I wasn't here for this, but I know the story, and
God.
Grant could vouch here. For it. So Edwin was driving on I think they were going to Seattle
Yeah.
for some kind of Pokemon tournament or something. They were driving a couple hours north, and Grant's sitting in the back or sitting, and he's like, something's whistling. And so
My
Grant's
car
like,
senses were tingling
Yeah.
like no one's business. I'm like, I
you
hear
should-
an air
you
leak.
should
You were in a
take over
PT
here,
Cruiser.
yeah.
It should have been.
I'm hearing an air leak. And I'm like, where's it coming from? And I realized the back window. You got the normal roll down window, and behind it's like a plastic trim piece, with a window. I'm like, okay, I hear that. And Edwin's like, don't touch it. Don't touch a single thing.
behind like the seat
Yeah.
pillar, there's like a
Yeah, and
little
I'm like,
tiny
I just-
window.
I'm like, you know what, dude? I'm like, just take my shirt and I'm just gonna put it right here to hold the leak because I want to hear for 3 hours. We're already in the highway at 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. And he's like, I'm like, it's okay. Just put it here. I'm like, see, look, putting it. And as soon as I put the shirt down, the entire window falls out on the highway.
Gosh. Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So we pull over, have to stop, eventually found the thing because it wasn't broken for some reason. And we're going to downtown Seattle is where we're staying. And we're like, we have to have the car sealed up. So I had to make a stop at AutoZone so I can get JB Weld, window tint, whatever I could to put the thing back in. Later to find out, because the car is so old, it was held on by like M3 tape on the inside, but it all had melted over time and just eroded, and the window had become more warped because it's plastic. And so like I jury-rigged it so it wouldn't leak and hold air and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Just-
there were so many issues with that car, and yet mechanically, it still ran.
Bullshit. No, it did.
Okay, it ran. It ran as I wagged my finger
Yeah,
at Grant.
it ran as the same as a guy with a broken leg limping across the street.
The transmission sounded like garbage. The car itself, it passed DEQ. He was able to drive it. He did regular maintenance on it, but eventually, yeah, he was like, I need to get something
The
else.
thing that bugged me is I honestly don't know how it passed DEQ because it had check engine light, it had like the ABS on light. Every single light on that dash was lit up.
Yeah.
And it somehow passed multiple times.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was at a time where I had Liger being down for I think half a year because I couldn't get the check engine light out for DEQ and South. It just
it outlived 2 Altimas.
yeah.
And I think it technically still runs. They just don't use it or he doesn't have it anymore.
Oh my god.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that car is on the bottom of all of our lists.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Grant, I don't think you shared that you were in the back of that car before.
Yeah.
no, he hasn't.
Sorry to burst that bubble.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Trying to fix things and did not end up fixing things.
Yeah.
I mean, I did, but
After you push the window out on the freeway.
hey, I tried to put I just put my shirt up to there. So I'm like, hey, this will stop the sound. Then whoop. I'm like, great.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
that's funny. Ooh, I missed that one.
Which
All right,
one?
Gene, what car would you like to try on track?
Oh, what car would I like to try and track?
Yeah.
I feel like a Civic Type R would be a lot of fun.
Really?
I'm pretty familiar with front-wheel drive. My current car is all-wheel drive, but it's sort of a front-wheel drive bias. But I just feel like the Type R is a car you can... It was designed for the track, and it seems like a car you could really just take to the extremes on the track, and it
Yeah.
would still do well.
Yeah.
So,
Other than- Go ahead.
and it's like a relatively low horsepower. It's not gonna you're not gonna get into too much trouble with it.
So what would you modify on it?
What are they putting out on the Type R now?
305, I think.
okay.
Yeah, turbocharged 4-cylinder.
And I think that's like perfectly usable, and I wouldn't get into too much trouble, and that'd be a lot of fun to like get comfortable on the track.
It would be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, then what would you modify?
Would I modify?
I know you would.
Modify it. I'd probably throw a tune on there. I'd like to, once I drive it a few times on the track, I'd want to be like, how much could I squeeze out of that turbo?
yeah.
Probably squeeze out another 50.
So are you more of a JDM guy or classic American? I know you're into the Porsches and that kind of stuff
Yeah.
too, but like which direction?
I definitely lean a little more towards JDM.
Yeah.
I just kind of like that sort of smaller, sleeker look. Although I don't feel like I pigeonhole it. Like I can appreciate like one of my first loves in terms of cars was like a Dodge Viper, like a 90s, early 90s Dodge Viper. It was just so amazing, and it was like a wild stallion of a horse. Like you couldn't tame it, and it was just I had like a little model as a kid, and I just loved the look of that car. It was so cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, but yeah, in general, I lean a little more towards the
JDM
JDM side.
Yeah. Did you have car posters as a kid? What was your poster?
Oh man, I definitely had a Lamborghini Diablo. Definitely had the Dodge Viper blue with the 2 white stripes down the racing stripes.
Yep.
Man, that was such a cool car.
Yeah.
Let's see what else did I have. I mean, I'm sure I had a Countach poster at some point. Maybe even a DeLorean.
We can get you another one though. We just got to take a picture of mine. And pull it.
Oh yeah, we need to do that.
We just have to blur
can put-
it. It
we
has
can-
to be very low res. That's a
Make it look like a real '80s photo. We could use the Polaroid,
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah.
and we could have Grant laying across the hood
Oh,
that'll be
man.
fun.
in a real sexy pose.
Can I have a rose?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that would be funny.
It'd be so good.
Yeah. Let's move on to the project cars for sale.
Okay.
Yeah. I know you had a few.
I had a few. I know Jeremy's been sending them out all day.
I sent 3.
You said 3. Do you want to go first, Jeremy?
Yeah. I actually pulled them up.
Okay.
So I sent, where the hell did it go? I sent 3. The one I was really excited about was the last one I sent you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start with that.
Okay.
It's a 1961 Ford E250 cargo van, and this thing looks like the Scooby van. It's got an inline six in it, but it's pretty cool, and it looks like it's in fairly good shape. It looks like the bottom half of it is removed, so like the front end's gone, the rear end's gone, but the motor's there, the trans is there, and this thing is sitting at $3,000 right now in Woodland, Washington.
Nice.
Not too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not too far for us.
For us, it's not.
Yeah,
like if
fair
you're
enough,
down in
fair
Florida, maybe
guy in
it's
Florida.
a little.
A little far. Okay.
We can get it shipped, though.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Guarantee we can get it shipped.
So that was kind of cool.
Nice. Okay.
Want me to keep going?
I have one.
All right.
Actually. So, I don't know if you guys remember the Dodge Shelby Charger.
Yes.
Excuse me. 1985. It was...
Those are the 4-cylinder turbos, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found a running one. 1985 Dodge Shelby Charger for $3,500. Running.
3,500.
3,500.
Damn, that'd be a steal. I think.
Well, that's what I think too. Like that car, they didn't build those, but God, two years or maybe 3. 85.
Shelby
86,
sticker's
87.
got to be worth $3,000.
Probably. I mean, Shelby didn't put his name on too many other cars than Ford, right?
No.
So I think that was his only run with Dodge.
Yeah.
Was that Shelby Charger. So, I don't know. The car's in really good condition.
Wow.
It's the
Do you have the
maroon.
space for it?
Do I have the space for it?
He's got 5 Corvettes.
Fortunately, I do.
14. I don't know how many.
But I do have a lot of
lot of
cars already.
Corvettes,
Yeah.
So it's maroon with the silver stripes down the middle. Typically, you saw the blue with the silver stripes. So I don't think I've ever seen one with the maroon, but it's kind of cool looking. Yeah, straight body. Paint is fair. Not perfect, but fair. I think you could probably bring it back pretty good. It doesn't look like any of it's peeling. You know how sometimes those older cars, they got that peel. Doesn't really look like that. It's in Monmouth, Oregon.
Nice.
Listed 4 months ago. It's still for sale. And it's a runner. So I don't understand why nobody's bought that. That feels like a pretty good project.
Yeah.
A neat little collectible car. So $3,500. There you go. Find it on Marketplace. Ready, go.
Okay.
All right.
So I've got one.
That's what we're waiting on.
I know.
Yes.
And I don't know how much I should say about this. I really think we should, whoever's selling this, we need to get on the show. I want to know all about this thing.
Okay.
So it was labeled as a 1986 Mustang. And that's what I saw labeled through. I'm like, okay, it's a Mustang.
Well, isn't that a Mustang 2?
But the problem is, it's a PT Cruiser. And it's only photos of a PT Cruiser.
Yeah.
So
So if you read about it,
it says PT Cruiser race car on an 86 Mustang chassis. They built a full race car, caged, and everything else based off a Mustang.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
put a PT Cruiser body on it.
Yeah.
That was made on
What?
a dare.
What motor does it have in it?
I'm trying to read it. It either says someone read it because I'm a slow reader. Because it says 5.9 in it, but then it also says there's a 6-cylinder in it. So I don't know what it's got in it.
Well, that's confusing.
Well, they
Yeah.
came with a bunch of different motors. The
Says-
86 came with a 4-cylinder or a V8.
It says other than the race car trailer, everything else I have race related goes with it. Tons of
302?
stuff, including a rolling
Yeah,
chassis.
5.0. Yeah.
Oh wow, rolling chassis cage, good cage that's still attached to a wreck car, a 1992 Mustang that has a 6-cylinder into it, rear end
realize
that
they
you would
have
need to go ready to race, transmissions, lots of other combos, wheels and blah blah, engines very type. Complete engine was a complete engine built by Eric Chainley. The head alone costs over $4,000, which is a big valve, big cam roller head with very few races on it. The block is okay, so here it is. The block on that is a small journal 5.9 rod that may only need bearings. Still running when pulled, but just felt tight. over $9,000 in the motor. Another engine with bad pistons too. A large, blah blah. Extra body panels for the PT Cruiser and for the Mustang.
But what motor?
Stuff. It said 5.9 in there. Is what it said.
Yeah, 5.9 journals. Not. That doesn't tell you what the size is.
I don't know, and there's no pictures of it, of the engine, I should say. But again, I think whoever built this thing and raced this thing, you're building a PT Cruiser racing. I want to know what was on their mind, what kind of things they were smoking, was it successful?
Yeah.
You know?
What kind of things are you smoking when you're
all that
building
I just said, because again, it comes with extra cage, extra cars,
And
extra
why?
whatever. They want $7,000 for it in Tacoma, Washington. So even if you're not into a PT Cruiser, and say you are into a Mustang or you are into building a race car because it comes with an extra car and extra cages and stuff, for $7,000, not bad.
Yep.
You know?
Interesting. Very interesting build.
Yeah.
Where did you say that was located?
Tacoma, Washington. For
Tacoma.
$7,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Who's
seems
next?
like a trip.
Yeah.
I can go again.
Okay.
So, second one I sent you guys was a 1977
that.
Dodge D600. I sent it to you guys with the caption, "This would be a good tow rig for somebody."
Mm-hmm.
It's a flatbed. It's only got 51,000 miles. Not 151.
D600?
Yeah, it's a D600. So it's like I think that's a 2.5 ton, if I remember right. If you did, some upgrades and newer modification type stuff to it, I think it could probably tow a freaking house because it's a big rig.
Yeah.
Probably something like your living quarter car trailer would be perfect behind something like that.
What kind of motor did you say? Because that would make a big difference.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
of
If it's a gas motor,
fuel economy.
Well, I don't think this one's going to get great fuel economy. And I'm thinking like project tow rig. So I would put a newer diesel in, probably upgrade the brakes.
Gotcha.
I just can't believe its gross vehicle weighs almost 25,000.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it's a big rig.
That's big.
Yeah, interesting.
Where at? What's it? How
This
much?
one's down in
Portland.
It says Portland, but in the body of the thing it said it was in Rosenberg. Oh, it was a Rosenberg school truck.
Okay. Gene, do you happen to have any cars for sale that you found?
I'm looking now, but I haven't found anything yet.
Okay.
Okay, I've got one.
Okay.
Mazda Miata MX-5, 1991.
$10,000.
$2,000.
What?
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
How rough is it?
It's not perfect. It does have a replaced front right fender.
Okay.
So that doesn't match the rest of the car. But the rest of it appears really straight. There might be a little wrinkle in the door just behind that same fender. The pictures aren't great. But if it's an autocross car, who cares?
Yeah.
For $2,000, that's a deal. The thing does run. It has a clean title. Let's see.
You said it was a 91?
It's a 91, yeah.
Okay. So it has the pop-up headlights.
It does, yep.
Even better.
Exactly. It does have it has the convertible soft top, not the hard top. Says the transmission is making some noise. Otherwise, let's see. Oh, transmission started making a loud noise. Checked with the mechanic. Needs a whole transmission. Still, for $2,000, transmissions are not that hard to do in a Miata.
Nice.
So for a little project race car, that's pretty good. It's located in Calistoga, California, listed on Facebook Marketplace. 91 Mazda MX-5.
Nice.
That's pretty good. Interior's clean. The rest of the car, besides the one fender being replaced, looks clean. No dents, dings that I can see in the pictures. I mean, pictures or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That one's pretty good.
Okay.
Oh, I did just find something.
Let's hear yours then, Gene.
So speaking of 924s, I found and this is a crazy good price. It looks like for a running car.
Okay.
1981 Porsche 924 Turbo
Woo!
for 1900.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a steal. If this is like actually running, electrics I guess are not functioning, but paint's kind of rough. Interior's mostly good. It looks like it's in pretty reasonable shape.
Do I need to get the car trailer?
I mean, this is the interior is kind of rough, but if the engine itself is running,
Yeah.
that 924 turbo, yeah, that's cool.
That's the car you wanted.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's the one you were trying to build.
You better bookmark that because I know I'm going to hear about it in like 2 days. But Grant, you know what? I've been thinking about this.
No doubt.
Yeah.
With the electrics, but yeah.
Yeah, but you find another one that has a bad engine. And
So you're telling me I need 2 project cars?
Hey, it's what happens.
Yeah.
I got one last one because I think last episode I talked about the C600s. I believe
Yes.
so.
Yes.
Okay, so this one I haven't talked about. So it's a 1977 Fiat X19. And they're asking a lot. They're asking $6,500 for it.
Wow.
I sent it to you guys in the messenger.
Yep.
But why this one's really bitching, honestly, it was built and set up for hill climb. It's already got a high compression 1.3 liter into it with a brand new 5-speed into it. The back end's already all done. All the electronics are already like really organized.
Oh, yeah.
And already, pressurized to go, and it's got a built engine. These
cool.
cars, when they're set up right, they haven't in the past been in multiple hill climbs taking records for it in Europe.
Yeah.
So this one looked interesting. I mean, independent throttle bodies it's gone to it. So for $6,500 in Olalla, Washington,
Already been built. Yeah.
already been built. It looks like it's already in the car too.
Oh, yeah.
So that's good on that one. You could have yourself a potential it's the thing with this car is body's rough in terms of it's all scuffed up and looks like it's getting ready for paint.
Okay.
But mechanically, it looks like it's all sound. So if you want a good hill climb, a good race car, I would recommend that.
Cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
On Marketplace.
on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. Yep.
Okay. I have one last car here.
Okay.
62 Chevy Corvair,
Oh, I think I saw this the other day.
the maroon one.
Yes.
It's a good looking car.
Yeah, and oof,
Yeah.
I'm going to let you go.
Listed 2 months ago, so it's been on Marketplace for a while. They just dropped the price $1,000. It's now $4,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a great project car. Body is super straight. The interior looks really good. Wow. Like the seats and everything look just sparkly perfect. Could be wrong, just picture angles and that kind of stuff. But like the dash looks really good. Mm-hmm. It's clean. It's a runner. It's an automatic. $4,000 listed in Dallas, Oregon, so outside of Salem. Oh, wow. For $4,000 on Marketplace. Man, 38,000 miles. So
Wow.
it is super clean.
That's not bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I have another one. I sent you guys an FJ, but as I was looking at the FJ, this 71 Chevy custom camper, what is it, a C20, popped up, and I think it's actually a better deal. So it's a runner. It's got a second gen 350 4-bolt main, Flowmasters, a couple other things. They only want $3,500 for this thing.
Wow.
It's got a decent patina. It doesn't look like it's too rusted. Actually, there's standing water in the bed of the truck, so it's not totally rusted out.
No, but they're waiting for it. They got the water in there.
The water's there.
They're trying. Come on, give them some time.
Yeah, good patina on it, and it's the orange color with the white roof.
Nice.
And that one's on Marketplace in...
Shipping is available on all of these
It
cars.
actually doesn't say where it's at.
Oh.
I'm surprised.
So shipping is required on that one.
It's probably in Timbuktu.
Yeah, well, perfect. All right. Anybody else?
Oh, Salem. It's in Salem.
Okay.
You could probably find some more, but
Well,
we'll save that for another episode.
Yeah.
Sounds
Any
good.
more, Gene?
Oh, just the one you sent me.
We'll just send them another Porsche. I'm flooding them with Porsches right now.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
I found a 928 also, but I didn't bring it up.
I do want to talk. This one's not, I wouldn't say a project that's on Marketplace. It just came up again. I'm going to share it to you guys right now so you can see. I don't exactly know what this is. I think I sent it to you too, Gene. So there's a 1988 in Portland, a 1988 Ferrari Vinocchio. Is that how you say it?
You're the Ferrari guy.
I've never heard or seen of this, and I don't think it's a Ferrari, but it. So it is
Iveco.
a truck.
Iveco? Iveco?
Iveco. It is a truck, a box truck with a big Ferrari symbol on the side.
Oh, I saw that one not long ago.
Yeah,
I think it's Ivanco.
Is that how you say it?
There's no N.
But if you look at the engine specs and stuff, it has a Fiat engine in it, I believe.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's a diesel.
It's not a Ferrari.
It's not a Ferrari.
No, but it's painted Ferrari.
Yeah.
It's painted Ferrari. It's a
It's
Fiat
like a
engine.
Ferrari delivery truck.
I just don't know what Iveco is or where that would come from because I know the Tonkins, the dealership, never had anything like that, which throws me for a loop. And it's something different. It's definitely a product. I don't know if it's a rare car. I don't know anything about it.
Swore I sent that to you this week.
I think I sent it to you and then you sent it back to me.
I think I sent it to you.
Okay. But it's something that caught my eye because if it's involved with Ferrari's history at all, could be actually worth looking into. The only problem I would say is why I'm not too certain about this. 1988, it's a 1988 Ferrari official Formula One parts van. So it was a parts thing for their team. Mm-hmm. They want $10,000 for it.
It's
that's
actually a pretty darn cool truck. So I just looked up Iveco. It's its own manufacturer. It's not.
Okay.
It's a European manufacturer, commercial vehicle manufacturer that offers a range of trucks and various uses, including road and off-road, urban delivery, and long-distance vehicles.
Okay.
So there you go. But kind of cool that they used it for, their Formula One team.
Yeah.
It's a neat looking truck. I like the paint.
Yeah. If they have the owners have records showing it's on a team or photos of it, I think that'd be a great
Oh, I agree.
project.
That'd be pretty neat.
Especially if you're a Ferrari collector and have that with that.
Yeah.
That'd be boss.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah, and $10,000 is not that bad.
No, especially if it's got the
It's a running vehicle, so
Yeah. It does have some damage on one of the front
I
bumpers.
saw that.
But again, you're buying that because you're having it go with your Ferrari collection.
Yeah.
That for me, I saw that and I was like, okay, that's one thing I just wanted to bring up.
Says Iveco is the European market leader in natural gas commercial vehicles.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Interesting.
And that could be current. I don't know if that vehicle was natural gas or if it's a diesel, but apparently they're big in Europe. That's kind of cool.
It would be interesting to talk to someone because I'm reading this and it says it has some really cool history to it. Only has bill of sale, needs to register.
Well, if there's documented history, that would be pretty neat.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
So
Where is it
It's
located?
in Portland, Oregon, for $10,000 is what they're asking
On
for.
Marketplace.
It's on Marketplace.
No? What was that?
No, it is on.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. All right. Thought you said it wasn't.
No.
Alrighty then. So, where are we at? We're at, what 3 vehicles would you like to drive someday? Now, it's vehicles. Could be anything. You don't have to own them.
And you've been listening, so you know what some
you
of
know
the
the
crazy
I
drill.
gotta ask because
You know the drill.
I know Gene's been listening to the beginning. He's heard this question a million times. I know you've been thinking about this since day one.
I've been thinking a little bit about it. What would if I had the luxury of driving anything?
Yeah.
I think the first thing I'd like to drive is like one of those crazy ass monster trucks. Like,
Nice.
Okay.
You want to crush
like
some cars?
Grave Digger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being one of like how loud it is, how powerful
Oh,
the
yeah.
thing, like just driving that? That'd be cool.
You wear earplugs.
Oh yeah. Or just lose your hearing.
He doesn't need
Or
it.
both.
He's used to how loud I am, so it's just normal now.
So that would be a really cool thing to drive. I also would love to drive the Lexus LFA.
That's a good one.
Just such a cool car. It sounds so cool. I hear that Yamaha has like tuned it so that it sounds really amazing. I think that'd be a really cool car to drive. Honestly, for a third one, I've been kind of debating, but I'm kind of leaning towards an electric car, like
Really?
something like a.
The door is right over here. Just like
just because I've never driven one.
Okay.
It would be an interesting experience. I've always ever driven a gas-powered engine or diesel, but I've never driven an electric car. I think something with like crazy torque, like the Tesla Plaid or
The new Mac
or the new
or whatever.
Something like that. That would be just wild experience.
You're talking something like 2,000 horsepower, the really fast cars, or 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah, something that'll take you 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds. Just to feel that and probably be terrified by it.
Yeah.
But that's just something to experience.
I hear it's a different experience, especially because our brains and our bodies are programmed to anticipate with the noise.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With the internal combustion, you floor that motor and you hear it spool and your body tenses
and you feel it rumble.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But with electric, that's not there.
Yeah.
It's just instant go.
All you hear is and then just go.
Yeah.
That's your
You
foot
don't
hit the
even hear
floor.
that. Yeah. But
Yeah.
They're
so
quick.
that would be
They're
probably a different sensory feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking about these, like, what would I like to experience? So I think all those would provide a very
Sure.
different experience.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd like to own an electric car. I mean, definitely wouldn't have that as an only car.
Right.
But just to try it out.
Okay, so we've kind of split that same question into 2 parts. Now, what 3 cars would you like to own? Without the money being an object, where do you stand? What is in your ultimate collection?
Yeah. Okay. So I would definitely like to have a pristine Porsche 924 turbo.
Okay.
With the 2.5 turbo. That would be like an amazing thing to try driving.
What color?
I think they had like a special edition at one point that was white with like a checkered interior, and it just looked so cool. I don't think there's any out there that are in good shape, and if they are, they're probably in a museum. But that would be amazing if I could have that. Just to the nostalgia of the 924. I really like my current car. I really like my CX-30. That would be one of them.
Come on.
I know that's kind of a silly thing to say, but I do really enjoy that car. It does everything I need it to do.
If you had a second one, what would you do to it then?
Let's finish the first question.
A third car. Okay. If money was no object. Some like crazy hypercar.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter which one, to be honest. Maybe an LFA, and that's maybe not even a hypercar, but just it's usable, but it's also like really, really cool. I think it's one of the coolest cars ever made.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I'm surprised none of the poster cars you grew up with, like the Viper.
Oh, man, I would love to have a Viper, but I'd kill myself in it.
Yeah.
I just know I would.
That's the cost of entry. Sorry.
I could maybe get used to the power or work it, but I feel like it would.
You'd grow
So you
into
get a
it.
Miata, and that's a baby Viper.
I'm throwing up right now.
Oh yeah, so maybe I could take back one of maybe okay, instead of my car, I think having an honest to goodness RX-7, the FD, nice like rotary, but really really nicely tuned. It could sound great, feel great.
3rd gen? Is that the FD?
The FD, the 3rd gen.
Such a
Yeah,
cool car.
yeah, it is very very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good choice. That's cool.
So,
Okay. Now the ultimate question.
dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. Which car is a hard no?
Hard no. I definitely don't want a Tesla.
Yeah.
Definitely not a Tesla Cybertruck.
Okay.
Hard no.
Hard no.
That is it? The Cybertruck?
Legit trash can.
Yeah.
you go.
There are other
That's what it
bad
looks like.
cars, but that's one that like some people really seem to like. I think it's a hard no. I think it does all of the wrong things.
Would that upset you if your first experience with a driving electric car was a Cybertruck?
I wouldn't want to get in that car, dude. No. One of the guys on our block just got a Cybertruck, and I walk by it all the time when I walk the dogs. It's just what an eyesore.
You're like, how do you open the can? I gotta throw the poop away.
And the crazy thing, his previous car to that was a Toyota GR86.
Wow.
How do you go from an
Wow.
86 to a Cybertruck? That I do not understand.
Holy cow.
I wouldn't.
And he doesn't even have like a fast charger for it. He just plugs it into his wall outlet. So I don't know how quickly.
So you
that
go
thing
by it
charges.
every so often. You're like, God, he's being loud last night.
Just unplug it.
I could. I'll ask Haley to do that. Next time.
There you go.
She's brave.
Yeah.
Man. It surprises me how often electric comes up as the hard no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it be Tesla or just electric in general, or never, when we started asking that question, that never really occurred to me that would be a thing. But man, it comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think there's. I mean, and I can't say for certainty because I've never really driven. I've been in one before, but never driven it. But yeah, I just wouldn't want to own one. I feel like there's a lot more hassle.
Yeah.
There can be some benefit to having it if you live in a city, if you have access to your chargers. But then the Cybertruck kind of defeated all that purpose. Like it kind of tried to be this like utilitarian, like all-terrain vehicle that has terrible mileage if you actually try to take it off land or off the road. And I think even Tesla voids the warranty if you go off road on a Cybertruck, which is like, you're right. What are you? It doesn't have an identity.
It doesn't tow. It doesn't haul.
It'll tow.
Does it tow? I thought
It'll tow.
I thought Winston Diesel
For a minute.
wasn't.
Well,
The aluminum frame.
the frame's not going to hold up to towing very well.
Yeah.
But it'll tow, and your mileage
We'll
gets cut
will
in half.
reflect that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, if best.
Yeah. It gets cut in half if you double the weight of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not to knock anyone who wants one or has one, but it's. I just feel like it doesn't have an identity
Yeah.
as to what its function is.
Oh, it's got an identity.
Trash can.
It is a trash can.
It is somewhat of a
It
trash
has
can,
definitely earned that one. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I've had that conversation, the electric vehicle conversation with people outside of the podcast and stuff. And it's like, they do have their useful quote, air quotes, usefulness. If you live downtown and you commute 2 miles to work,
Yeah.
and you don't take long trips anywhere, and it really limits you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if that's your life, then maybe that's the right vehicle for you.
Yeah. Or get a scooter or, something
Right.
like an electric scooter or.
There's
or
a lot of other things you could do.
Sure,
But,
yeah.
But at the same thing, it's like these electric, and I kind of look at like the Leaf, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The range is terrible. I think it's 100 miles or less, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe the new ones are further. I don't know. But that's the perfect downtown miniature commuter, quote unquote commuter, I guess.
It's not.
Vehicle, because it's small. It's easy to get into parking garages and parking spaces and this and that. They're even smaller than a Tesla.
But it's not the perfect one. The perfect one
Is none?
Smart car.
Whatever. Smart car's not electric.
Yeah, it is. They make electric versions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, coolest thing, huh?
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up real quick.
Oh, yeah. Well, we hadn't got there yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I guess the electric car, just to put a stamp on that, it does have its place, but I think it's really limited, and I don't like that they're trying to force it on us. So there's all that. What's your coolest thing, Grant?
I wanted to bring this up. It's been kind of eating me all week, and I've been sending you guys things about it. There's been numerous photo leaks of the Sultan of Brunei collection.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Seen it?
And it has been bananas seeing, dozens of, or, McLaren F1s and,
Yep.
endless Ferraris and
Right.
Ferraris that, and one-off cars that no one has ever seen.
Right.
Even there was an article I was saying they made the quote unquote Ferrari F90 or something is what they called it, and it had the first paddle shifters of anything, and they used that to become then into the 355, which became the F1 system.
Yeah, they commissioned the Sultan of Brunei or like his brother or something commissioned Ferrari to build that.
Yeah,
did.
wasn't it
Yeah.
his brother was really the
sorry.
guy into the cars, and he was like the driving force to a lot of those things, the commissioning of special cars from Ferrari, or even purchasing of all the F1 cars that he did and that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Wasn't he more the driving force?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And it's nuts though because also they bought. I've heard stories that in the early '90s and '80s that they were holding Rolls Royce over. I think it's like something like 1,400
I read-
Rolls Royces they have.
I read that too.
know?
Yeah. Oh, the quantity of cars is insane.
Yeah.
It's just nuts.
But it's been a collection that no one's seen for years. I don't know how these photos are coming up now because they look
Right.
old photos. They don't.
They do look old.
like a modern camera.
Right.
Which also begs the question: what's the condition of these cars then?
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
You know,
Doesn't he have like 10 McLaren F1s?
yeah,
Yeah,
10.
what I heard.
So far,
1/10 of all that have ever been
built.
produced.
yeah. And so far, there's been 8 photos of them, and it's been bananas. I'm seeing Ferraris that are like for F40s that are all black.
Yeah.
They all came from the Ferrari factory red. And the fact there's multiple colors they have. I think there's one that's tan and beige, and they came from the factory that way just for them.
Just for
they
them. Yeah. I
bought
saw that beige one. Yeah.
it. Just the amount of money you have to like take a company by the arm and say we're doing this is mind blowing.
Yeah, especially a company like Ferrari because they're very staunch in their, no, this is the way it's done.
Yeah.
This is the way our cars will look. You cannot change them. So for them to be able to buy their way into that is pretty impressive.
I think one that I thought was nuts was they had a Ferrari that's like kind of has a sleek back. They made it into a notchback sedan.
Wow.
It was a Ferrari
one that is?
456, and they made it like look like a sedan. It was the only one.
Yeah.
They've had
Well, they have multiple one-off cars
Yeah.
that they've had commissioned.
and
yeah.
some of them like I'm kind of wondering how they made it past concept. Or someone's like, yes, that's a great idea because in my opinion, some of them don't look fantastic.
Yeah.
or they're dated of their time.
Right.
But yeah. I just wanted to bring up, if you guys want to check it out, or any of our listeners check it out, it's on Facebook, it's on Instagram.
Yeah, it's kinda
I
all
think-
over right
yeah,
now.
I think it's it's
very intriguing.
dedicated to
It's
it.
also kind of sad. Like
Yeah.
for a car guy to look at those and just like, yeah, they're hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of really special cars just rotting away in the
Yeah.
humid jungle.
Yeah.
Basically, he's got these parking garages, but they're not enclosed. They're not humidity controlled. They're not, it's, I don't know. It's ridiculous wealth
Yeah.
used
Yeah.
incorrectly.
Yeah.
You know?
He also famously has a yacht that's named Tits.
I
Really?
heard something about that. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna have to look that up.
yeah, just to
Does he
show
use
you
it
that
or does it just sit in the harbor?
it probably just sits in the
Sits.
harbor.
It's probably sunk.
Everything they do, it seems just like a big show of wealth.
Yeah.
And it,
They buy this whatever giant boat, this yacht, all these cars,
yeah,
and they
then
never
just
use them.
Sit and
rot.
Yeah, it's so sad.
They
It
rot
is really
away.
Sad.
Yeah. It's kind of a bummer. It'll be interesting. I mean, photos surfaced. Nobody knows at our level where they came from. But does this mean something's going to start moving in the collection? Or are things going to start coming out?
Yeah,
are
it's
we
certainly some
breaking loose?
I know there was a Ferrari collector that was talking about last year that he was able to go into the collection and take some photos because there was some of them that were going to be sold.
Yeah.
And it was very few photos, not like as much as we're seeing now.
Right.
But yeah, there's not very many. And what's nuts is a collection that big and no one's seeing it.
Right.
Like to
Yeah.
have
They're
that
very
much-
guarded.
museum.
to have that much security on there. But even if they're guarded, they're in a non-climate control open
Oh, I know.
area. They're just getting destroyed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting to have somebody go through and kind of catalog, and I'm sure it'll happen at some point, catalog the cars and then how much it would take to bring them back into,
Restoration.
yeah, I don't want to say perfect condition because
Yeah.
who knows,
Yeah.
but even, bring them into drivable condition because I guess there's a lot of rot happening interior wise, growing mold and this kind of stuff on all those interiors. And that's real leather stuff.
It's tragic.
You can't fix that. It's replace. So kind of interesting.
So for our listener who's listening to us, the biggest one I've found has been on Instagram for the username of Tiffy, TAFFY _C_S_145. It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But it's hundreds of photos of these.
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, see, look.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, they just have.
I wonder how they got in there to do that. And I wonder if it was a sneak in mission,
Yeah.
I found it. Take all these pictures and release them. And then they'll get caught and persecuted.
Yeah.
That could be bad.
Yeah.
All right. So where are we at? Anything else?
Got any shout outs, Gene?
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, just shout out to you guys. You guys
Yo.
have been doing a really
Thanks
great
for
job.
listening to the show.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, you
How-
put together a really amazing show.
Oh,
No
man.
kidding.
Thank you.
I got to know, Gene, because you've been a long time listener. Do you have a favorite episode? Or one that sticks out?
I think one of my favorite episodes was, I think it was like maybe episode 9 or so. You had, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he and his father had built a car together, and that was just like such a
Derek?
wild thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because it was like, yeah, it was really cool to kind of go through the whole project from nothing to having a fully built car or getting to that point.
Right. Now it's
So-
got to be Derek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our buddy Jimmy Galloway. I mean Derek. Sorry, Sorry, Jimmy. I mean Derek. Dang it.
So that was a great one. You had another episode with I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but he was talking about tuning. Older gentleman, I couldn't.
Yeah, John.
John. Yeah.
Niemeyer.
And I just love he was just like really matter of fact. He was
He is.
Yeah,
John's awesome.
I appreciate. I got a good crack out of that.
Yeah.
But it was good insight to tuning.
Oh yeah, John's a super good dude. I look forward to hopefully working with him a little bit on some tuning on some of my cars. But ran into him down at SEMA. Watched some Optima
Wow.
with him and stuff like that. Yeah, it was good.
Very nice.
Yeah, he's a good dude. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And thanks for listening. Well, you haven't heard last week's episode yet.
Yeah.
So that could be your next
That could be my next favorite,
Yeah.
or maybe
That was
this
fun.
one,
Or maybe this one.
This one.
depending how much of a narcissist I am.
That's my favorite episode for sure. That's the one. Right on. Well, thank you again for coming in.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gene.
Great time. Good to get to know you and talk to you about your projects and that kind of stuff and life stuff. For the listener, thank you for following along. Hit follow, share the podcast, help us build an empire.
Give us a star rating on Spotify. If you see that little button, click it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give us a follow on our Instagram. We're trying to build that up.
Yeah. It's coming slowly.
Untitled Car Project.
Untitled Car Project at gmail.com. Send us an email. And that is it for the day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.